Next, we'll have approval of minutes. We have minutes from Carol Holman.
December the 11th, January 4th, January the 8th, and January the 26th.
You've been busy. Move for approval. Second. Any discussion, changes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Now we have citizens' opportunity to address the council. We have a full room tonight and many things on our docket. I would ask that you step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and then keep your comments limited to 3 minutes or less. If you are here about the rezoning issue on Albert and Taft, we will have a separate what's it called? What do we call it? Public hearing. And so if you would hold your comments, if you're going to talk about that till that time, that would be appreciated. Would anyone like to address the council? First, and then I'll get you second.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Nancy Craig, and we own several properties within the town of Signal Mountain. I'm also a commissioner on the Lono Utility District. And so I'm here today just to, I know that you all have a very complex and difficult decision ahead of you with the water decision that you're going to make. And we have gone through the same thing over the last few years, which I think you're probably aware of. I am hoping that you or whoever is on your selection committee that will come and talk with our board and hear just some of the experiences that we've had. It would take me much longer than 3 minutes to do a comparison today, or even to do it in letter form. I think we have some very valuable information that might even help you avoid some of the pitfalls that we fell into, and wish that we had someone like you to come to when we were going through it, that maybe you could have given us some advice. So I think we've got some things that we could share with you that you may not have thought about and that might find valuable. So that's all I have to say. And I have a letter that I would like to give each of you just to outline some of the differences, but it's really not complete or complicated.
You also sent an email, didn't you? Did you send an email?
Not
somebody from Lone Oak. Anybody else?
We sent in the RFP that Walden Ridge did. We did a letter in the.
Okay. I thought I saw it somewhere.
I didn't.
Can I get your name?
It's Nancy Craig. C-R-A-I-G.
Yes, ma'am.
We also work very closely with the Tennessee Association of Utility Districts. Who didn't get one? I've got a couple more.
Here, have there. Why don't we give this to Carol? Carol, can you make sure that Bob, Amy, and I get a copy?
I think she's got it.
Oh, yes. Could you give one to Carol? Please, for the
Are
record.
you Carol?
I am Carol. Thank you very much.
You go.
Oh, you have
I do.
Okay.
And then let's leave one for Amy. Do you mind if we leave one for the other council?
No, that's okay.
Is this all her stuff or yours, Dan?
That's her stuff.
And the last thing I just would like to say is that there is an attorney on the Tennessee Association of Utility District that works very closely with us, and we would be happy to connect you with him. He's very knowledgeable about utility districts, helped write the manual, and would probably help you immensely with the decision and even in contract, whatever shape you might end up with.
Thank you. Carol, did you get an address?
She did not give an address.
Do you mind giving an address for our record?
My home address is 3160 Deerwood Lane, and it's on Signal Mountain. That's not in the town, but we own 5 properties.
Doesn't need to be. Thank you. Ma'am.
Yes.
I'm Eugenia Allderdice, E-U-G-E-N-I-A. Last name is A-L-L-D-E-R-D-I-C-E. My address is 84 Carriage Hill. This is David Evans as well.
Hello, I live at 609 Carolina Avenue.
And we're representing Be Local, Choose Local, and this concerns the water issue as well. We are supporting the sale to WRUD because it is a nonprofit entity. Water is a necessity of life and shouldn't be controlled by a company who has shareholders who want a return on their investments. The best way to make that return, I would imagine, is to buy more water systems and raise rates. Our sister towns of Lone Oak and Walden severed their contracts with Tennessee American, so why would the town of Signal Mountain want it to get into a contract or allow them to buy our water system? Our contacts should be local, business should be local. I have shared with you before, I believe, the experience I had when we were flying out of the country, and I came home the day before and got an enormous water bill. Called the town, the wonderful water department that we have, and they said they would send somebody out tomorrow. And I said, I'm not going to be here tomorrow, and if my landscape is all torn up, I need to know now. They sent somebody out right away. If I called Tennessee American, I had a very good chance of talking to somebody in another country. The water for WRUD comes from an aquifer. It is not surface water from the river that's used by recreation and commercial boaters. So from the research that our group did, it requires very little chemical cleansing, and so it's better water. And it is my knowledge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Mayor Howley and Councilman Spalding and Mr. Beal all get your water from WRUD. And if that is true, I would ask you to please extend that privilege to the rest of the town.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just in reference to the quality of water, one of the caps that the federal government places on water is something called trihalomethanes. It's because it's believed to be a carcinogenic factor in life, can cause cancer and liver damage and so forth. And while the cap is set at 80, I want to make clear that Tennessee Water American Company is under the cap. It's within 12% of the cap. In comparison, the water, in terms of TRMs that comes from the aquifer, is a small fraction of that. It's like 8 versus 70. And so you really get much higher quality water. One of the things I also want to point out in terms of what Ms. Craig spoke of, in terms of the Lone Oak experience, I'd like to present to you, so you can put it in the record, a very extensive article that was published in the Chicago Tribune, one of the largest national papers in the United States, as I believe it was December 27th, of the terrible difficulties that the residents of small towns outside of Chicago went through with one of the affiliates of the parent company that owns Tennessee Water American. If you read the letter and heard the comments from the Lone Oak District, and you read this article, you will see it is a 180-degree difference. And I really commend this article to you so that you can read about what ultimately the American Water Works, this large New York Stock Exchange company, has done, particularly to small communities such as Signal Mountain, after they take control. The prices were gotten to a point where people who literally could not afford them in these communities. It's remarkable. And this is not something from me, this is from the Chicago Tribune public reporting. So with that, I'd just like to go ahead and hand these up, if I may, for circulation. And thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You leave one for us.
Leave one for her.
Did you get? Did you?
I have more if you need. I gave you 7.
One more. Sir.
One more.
Yeah. If I could have it. I don't want to take your last copy. I can get it away.
I didn't know how many to make, so I made 10.
Perfect.
Just one or 2?
That's fine. No, that gets everybody we need to get. Thank you. Ms. Greisinger?
No, they go together.
Oh,
And they'll drink them.
they got our names on them, so I figured.
And sorry.
Lana Greisinger, 40 Carriage Hill. Our town buys bulk water from Tennessee American, pumps it up the mountain, and sells it to our citizens. And now the town is deciding to sell our water system to Tennessee American Water, TAW, or Walden Bridge Utility District, WRUD. Both have sent in proposals to buy our system, and between the two, I would choose WRUD. I do not want to be a Tennessee American customer. I don't want to drink their river water. I know that they meet all government mandated requirements to be a water provider, but then they have to. I passed out a sample of water from TAW's water source, the Tennessee River, to council members Landrum and G, who are Tennessee American customers, as is Amy Speak. It's not very clear water, is it? If you get a large quantity of it, it is quite dark. And if I put that through some cheesecloth so that the little dirt particles in the bottom were gone, so it's just what's left of the water that you got in there from Tennessee American. However, it will be safe to drink after it goes through the Tennessee American filtration process. And their process starts with coagulation, and then it moves to flocculation, then clarification, on to filtration, then disinfection, and finally it's safe to drink. The chemicals to treat this river water are added along the way. I've also passed out a sample of water from WRUD's source at Aquifer to Mayor Howell and Councilman Spalding, who are already WRUD customers, along with our town manager. WRUD's water has been determined by the state to be a true groundwater source. No filtration is even required. I'd like to enjoy that same unfiltered water that our mayor and council member Spalding do. And as far as Tennessee American rates go, all I can say is they go up, up, up. Each year, Tennessee American adds what their costs will be for infrastructure, water mains, hydrants, meters, production plant structures, equipment. They also add up their economic development expenses for projects, new real estate developer, I imagine developers love them, and expenses for safety and environmental compliance are included too. These costs add up to millions of dollars every year and have increased bills 17.78% since 2013, and they will never stop. After yearly approval by the PUC, these expenses are billed as capital recovery rider and included in each customer's monthly bill. Since our town buys bulk water from Tennessee American, our town is a customer and also pays the rider. In 2017, the rider charge was over $60,000. In 2016, it was over $42,000. But most of our citizens are unaware of these yearly increases from Tennessee American because the cost of this capital recovery rider has not been passed on to Signal Mountain customers. Here are the monthly water bills from Tennessee American to our town for 2017 and 16, and the capital recovery rider is on each bill. And here is my water bill. No capital recovery rider is on it and has never been on it. The town is paying the capital recovery expenses out of the water fund. We never get this cost added to our bill, so most are unaware our water costs increase every year. Our water fund is for refurbishing our system, not paying Tennessee Americans yearly increases. So you can choose to sell the water system to Tennessee American, a private for-profit company that our two neighbors, Lone Oak and Walden's Ridge, have severed ties with recently. Or you can vote to let the citizens become WRUD customers, as 2 of you and 370 other families in our town already are. I would like my water to come from my neighbor, WRUD.
I'll get you next. Yes,
Bob
sir.
Greisinger, 40 Carriage Hill. I didn't expect to stand up, but y'all have very secretly hidden your water. I would like you to take it out, pass around to the audience so they can see the difference between the river water and the untreated water that Walden's raised in.
About that too. Get back to Mary. This is an example of the two.
I was just going to say, this is a very closely held secret. If you're passing it out to the audience, it doesn't seem to me like you're doing anything in secret in this public meeting. Ma'am?
Melissa Cantrell, 105 South Drive. Okay, I had to cross some stuff out, but I know you want me to be briefer. I want to go on record, and I know this is early days, as being against the sale of our water system to Tennessee American, a for-profit entity. I don't want to pay for lobbyists. I don't want to pay for increasing dividends to stockholders, and those of you who own stock in American Water Company know what I'm talking about. I don't want to pay for sponsorships, the print media ads that have been running for a while now. I don't want to pay for their new headquarters, 1 Water Street in Camden, New Jersey, the one with a really cool view. I've driven up to the perimeter of the property where Tennessee American's administrative offices are located. I don't know if any of you have been buzzed through. I didn't try it. I don't want to pay over $2 million a year to their CEO or pay for their 14 other higher echelon officers. I don't want to have to spend over 9 minutes waiting for a customer service rep who is plugged into a headset at a call center. And this is key. I do not wish to be dealing with a for-profit company, period. I've tried to get information from American Water and Tennessee American. The same information I easily obtained from WRUD. Guess who ignored me or refused to give me information? Without an attorney in a lawsuit, American Water doesn't have to give me the same information that WRUD is required to turn loose of. There's no equivalency here. I can and have attended a Walden's Ridge board meeting, and I've gotten minutes from them. I tried to find out where I could get American Water's board minutes. I even contacted investor relations, and I'm sure they got a good laugh out of that one. I have other issues with the use of money that many of us have paid to maintain our water system, and I'll be bringing those up at a later date. Wait a minute. I've done my homework. We've had over 2 years to do this. I've attended Tennessee American Water Company's meet and greets, not at law offices, but at the Macc. I don't need any more PR pamphlets to make up my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, Town Council, my name is Clinton Sanko. I'm a resident at 3101 Beachree Lane in Fox Run. So I have a little bit of a different perspective. I'm currently a member I received my water from Walden's Ridge. But prior to that, I lived on Lancaster Drive, got it from Signal Mountain. Prior to that, I lived off the mountain down in Chattanooga and got it from Tennessee American Water. I can proudly say I have not had any water service quality issues at all from any of the utility districts or any kind of service failures from any of them. So I don't speak from that perspective. But I hope that the town council will very seriously consider Tennessee American Water's proposal. I've actually represented Tennessee American Water as their lawyer and a lot of other independently owned water companies all over the country. And I can say their commitment to their customers, their service quality, their science, their infrastructure investment, their knowledge of the industry is unsurpassed. In terms of, there's been a lot of complaints about the quality of water that I've heard, and I'm relatively confused because my understanding was that all of the water for Signal Mountain comes from Tennessee American Water and has for many, many years. That's already what we're drinking on the mountain, and I don't even understand this proposal to be about the water source. I understand this proposal to be about operation of the transmission and distribution system, which is a totally separate question. So I'm really not sure where a lot of those comments are really even coming from. The other thing that I look at is, I'm a lawyer, right? So I work off the mountain in downtown Chattanooga, but I am a concerned, invested citizen of Signal Mountain. Being off the mountain doesn't make me off the mountain control or non-local control. It's the same with Tennessee American. They're in Chattanooga. Like, this is a local company with local employees. The people that will be servicing the water company are local. So I'm not sure where this local movement comes from, because Tennessee American Water is a local company as well. So I appreciate your time and attention, and for listening to me this evening. Thank you very much.
Could we, the crowd comments, can we please be respectful as people present their opinions? Who's next?
Hello, my name is Daphne Kirkse. I live at 1109 Applewood Circle, and I'm also a resident of the town of Signal Mountain, as well as an employee of Tennessee American Water. So I'm one of 100 employees here in this area that live and work and play in the communities that we serve. My job is external affairs manager, and while some people in the audience may not agree that the job that I have brings value to our community, I would disagree with that. I am in charge of a lot of the intangibles, and for example, we started the Science Olympiad for elementary schools about 11 years ago, which had a mistake in the Hamilton County Department of Education. We saw a need for children to be introduced to STEM-related activities and be engaged and be excited about them at a much younger age. So that's something that has grown to over 600 children a year participating, and that's something that I'm very proud of that our community does. Another thing that I oversee is communications with our customers, as well as with different officials. One of the things that I think is very important is to reach out to our different constituencies, so to speak, our customers, at many different levels, because in this day and age, we all have very short attention spans. We hear a lot of messages, so I want people to be able to have information about their water. When I first started working for Tennessee American Water, I honestly didn't even know where my water came from. I had been in the job for about a week, and I asked our director of operations, hey, where does Signal Mountain get their water from? I mean, we have like small creeks up here, but I knew it wasn't enough. And that's when I learned that Tennessee American Water provides the water. And that's something we've been doing for 93 years, and we've been doing very well. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
On a different point, I'm Barbara Womack, and I live at 3010 Wingfield Court. And I'm going to talk about trees rather than water. 2018 marks the 10th anniversary of the Signal Mountain Tree Board. During our 10 years, we've taught 5th graders, many of whom are in college now, the value of trees and how to plant and protect them. We inaugurated an honor tree program that provides not only a meaningful way to recognize the life or contributions of individuals, but also provides for planting trees in areas where they're needed, resulting in an increase in the tree canopy of our town. I gotta slow down. For the past 7 years, Signal Mountain has earned the designation Tree City USA. Since there are only 3,400 tree cities in the United States, we're in a pretty elite group whose focus is to raise public awareness of the importance of trees and the loss of tree canopy all over the nation. That designation allows us to distribute 300 young trees to individuals every year. Perhaps the most well-known tree board program is our Hemlock Conservation Task Force. For almost 5 years, we have taught private landowners how to protect the eastern hemlock from the HWA, the hemlock woolly adelgid, which has decimated the eastern hemlock from Maine to Alabama and Georgia. We have protected many hemlocks in Green Gorge and in Rainbow Lake through chemical and biological controls. Signal Mountain is the first town in Tennessee to privately fund a predator beetle release, a fact noticed and lauded by the Tennessee Division of Forestry and the Nature Conservancy. In fact, because we are a member of the Tennessee Hemlock Conservation Partnership, and because our parks are in a conservation easement, TDF has sent teams to continue treating our park trees. On March 3rd, the Tennessee Division of Forestry strike team with the students from the University of the South and the TDF foresters and 3 members of our Hemlock Conservation Task Force work in Rainbow Lake once more, measuring and tagging trees for treatment this spring. TDF hosted the 3rd annual HWA Managers Meeting in Hemlock last August, when the group visited Rainbow Lake to illustrate what our private-public partnership is accomplishing. The attention of foresters from every state where the eastern hemlock grows focused on Signal Mountain. Indeed, many commented on the unique beauty of Rainbow Lake as an asset to our town. By protecting our hemlocks, we preserve the environmental and financial value of this keystone species. Healthy trees add great monetary value to property. Dead trees or dying trees present safety and fire hazards, thus forcing their removal, a not inexpensive endeavor. I use the term tree canopy in this statement. In 2012, Bruce Webster, senior urban forester with the Tennessee Division of Agriculture, estimated our tree canopy as a very healthy 73%. Since that time, builders have removed trees to make way for homes. We have lost trees due to their environmental factors. The town has removed trees to plant grass for whatever purpose. I tremble to see what our canopy is today. Section 13-216 of the ordinance establishing the tree board states that reasonable effort shall be made to replace trees that are removed from public property and to protect quality trees that are endangered on public property. What are your plans to replace the healthy trees you removed? Did you consult an arborist before removing these trees? Forward-thinking cities and suburbs are protecting and planting trees, realizing that trees can improve both the physical and mental health of the citizenry. Trees reduce flooding, air pollution, energy costs, and increase property value. Most fifth graders know this. I beg you to protect this beautiful mountain and streets. Enforce subdivision regulations, replace the trees you remove, and protect those that are here. After spending 14 years traveling all over the world, I can truthfully say there's no more place more beautiful than this place.
Thank you, ma'am.
Question about the creditor.
Yes.
Do we know how they're working?
How they're doing it?
Yeah.
It takes about 4 years to determine.
So we are
in probably the 3rd or 4th year. We did it the 4th, it's the 4th year now. And we'll have to go down there. I can't do it now. I'm physically unable. But we will go down there and put, what you do is you get a white umbrella, shake the tree, and see if you still have beetles.
So you won't come back and let us know how?
Oh, yeah. It just takes me a while to work up courage.
I'd like to add that Noah Long has stepped down for how many years now that he's been running your?
Noah has been, we are both founding partners of the, members of the tree board.
How long has that been?
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to bring this up in other business, but I think this is appropriate time. This group, and I've been to, I believe, one of their meetings, does some exceptional work. And I received today in my mail from the Arbor Day Foundation media press release that says Signal Mountain was once again in 2017 named a Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation, and it's due to the work of all your good folks.
And I'm telling you, we're in an elite group. There's only 3,400, cities in the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm so nervous.
Give me 1 second. I'm terribly sorry. Whenever my kids enter the room, that's usually what occurs. Thank you for tolerating that. Sorry. Sir.
So my name is Kurt Stafford. I live at 4484 Stonecroft Lane. And I first want to start out by saying I appreciate that you all opened the forum up for the water RFP. I appreciate you all bringing this out and letting us share open discussions and have discussions on these things and these topics and stuff like that. I've lived in the Signal Mountain community for about 2 years now, and I really enjoy living up here. So I was really excited when the RFP came out because I was really excited. Water is our passion at Tennessee American Water. We really want to get into this and work and show what we can do. On the water quality side, Clint talked a little bit about the water quality and kind of what we've done in the past. Tennessee American Water has been around for 130 years, and that's amazing if you think about it. 1887, we've been around for 130 years. We've been serving the Signal Mountain community for 93 years. I mean, that's amazing. We've been drinking the water up here, get Tennessee American Water for 93 years. So, we appreciate your all's partnership and what you guys have done back and forth with us. I think everybody just needs to keep in mind, we've worked together for years and years, and this isn't something that just started, yesterday. On the water quality side too, we mentioned we've been around 130 years, never had a water quality violation in our whole history, and so that's really amazing. Also, my background is engineering, so when we submitted to the RFP, I worked along the infrastructure side and, helping figure out what Signal Mountain needs, what we need to do to your community, kind of bring everything up to par. So I'm really excited about what you guys have done, and we've got a lot of innovative ideas, a lot of things that we can share with you guys, and so we're looking forward to what's coming forward and just looking forward to getting this out and getting all the discussion open up to everybody so we can all have a good, fair discussion. You guys can make a good decision, so appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to add that, and boy, this might be the appropriate time, but at this meeting today, we're going to be presented with some information, but we will also be having several additional public hearings and have comments, times for comments and back and forth. I'm not dissuading you from doing it now. I just want you to know that this is not going to be the only time that everyone gets a chance to talk about this. Thank you for your comments, sir. Next. All right, now, you only get, if you're coming together, you still only get 3 minutes.
My name is Coleen LaLiberte, and I live at 209 Pinehurst Lane. I've been a resident of this mountain since 1985. And before my 3 minutes start, I want this to be included in my 3 minutes. I just wanted to say thank you for your service to the town of Signal Mountain and the residents, and that I want to acknowledge and the tremendous responsibility that you have as stewards and leaders for every citizen of this town, and I just wanted to say that. I would like to speak out on behalf tonight of the Mountain Art Community Center, and I come before you this evening in an attempt to separate fact from fiction, rumor and hearsay concerning recent developments concerning the Macc. I do not believe it's necessary here to remind everyone that we're talking about the future of the town of Signal Mountain's Department of Art and Culture.
Excuse me 1 second, ma'am. What is that?
It's a feedback.
Oh, that's my phone somebody trying to call me.
Oh, okay.
I drafted the letter, and I will be sending this email of this letter to everyone, but I'm trying to keep my finger on it so it doesn't go away.
No, sorry.
And this is a subject about which I am extremely passionate. Both Wally and I were members of the original founding group in 1999 that transformed the old Signal Mountain Grammar School into the Macc to serve as the Department of Art and Culture for the town. For 10 years, we worked as a nonprofit and was not part of the department of the town of Signal Mountain, and since 2009 it has been, and that's what I want to address. My purpose here tonight is to bring before the town council questions and concerns regarding what I have recently learned. It is my understanding that Terry Cannon, a private individual, has been in closed private meetings with members of the town council to discuss the sale of the Mountain Arts Community Center building and grounds located at 809 Kentucky Avenue. I was shocked to learn this, but I had this information confirmed at a recent town council work session. I did not know the town was in the process of dissolving the Department of Art and Culture by selling off the main asset, 809 Kentucky Avenue. I also learned that there's a new 501c3 nonprofit forming which has approached the town of Signal Mountain about taking over the Mountain Arts Community Center to manage all aspects of the building, programming, and staff, and asking the town to continue funding the operation of the building, including paying staff salaries and benefits for a period of at least 2 years. In effect, this sounds as though the citizens of the town of Signal Mountain will continue to pay for the operation of the Macc, but have no input into the operation, management, or programming at the Macc. Neither of the above scenarios has been brought before the public hearings or discussions that I am aware of, and I've asked and I've looked on the internet to see if there were in fact minutes about these conversations. The town council, as stewards for assets of the community, should be responsive to the needs of the entire community with regard to such major changes proposed to vital departments of the town of Signal Mountain. And here's some of my specific questions, which I know cannot be answered tonight, but I hope there will be public forums in which we can address them. Has the community been involved in discussions about the sale or dismantling of the Department of Art and Culture? If so, when were these meetings held and how were they publicized? Many work sessions are held during the day when it is difficult for citizens to get off of work to attend and participate. Can you schedule meetings concerning this important issue and publicize them to our community through the media and public notices? Number 2, can someone speak about the new 501c3 and the Memorandum of Understanding? During a previous work session, someone asked, where is the Memorandum of Understanding, to which a response was given on Phil's desk. No one explained what that meant or what the next action would be with regard to turning over the management of the Macc to this new organization and details about the town of Signal Mountain funding the organization for the next 2 years. Question number 3, how does either selling this building at this point or turning over management and the town of Signal Mountain's funds to conduct the management benefit the citizens of the town of Signal Mountain? Number 4, is the town council considering selling off or dismantling other departments of the town of Signal Mountain? Number 5, are the ball fields for sale? Number 6, is the pool for sale? Number 7, is the library for sale? There have been lengthy... I'm sorry.
Take your time.
I'm trying to make sure I don't lose this letter.
Will you be sending us that letter?
I will. There have been lengthy discussions by the Macc board, which is a community liaison group that is responsible for reporting to the town of Signal Mountain about community input concerning the Macc. Concerning 3 options considered for the future of the Mountain Arts Community Center at 809 Kentucky Avenue. I do not know if they've made a report of their most recent meeting. And these are the 3 options I have heard under consideration. Number 1, selling the property to a private owner. I was unaware it was for sale. Number 2, relinquishing control of the building and programs to a new 501c3. I would like to know more. Number 3, entering into a public-private partnership between the town and a 501c3. Here we go. In spending time talking and thinking about the above, I would urge the town council to consider the long-term outcomes for our community arts center of either selling the building or relinquishing control to a brand new organization. Consider for a moment the quality of life for all of the citizens in our beautiful town. Cassandra McCullers identifies 8 things that make a community a great place to live, and among the items listed are climate, good schools, safety and low crime rate, economy, activities such as events and festivals and culture, each of which are currently present and strong in our Signal Mountain community. Culture, she writes, is about what makes a city truly unique and memorable: music, history, art, theater, diversity, and many other facets that all help separate one city from another. I urge the town council to consider the importance of having a Department of Art and Culture and to retaining the Mountain Arts Community Center as a vital part of our town, now and for generations to come. Without the Macc, our town and community will suffer a huge loss of culture. Not every town can boast of having one of its oldest buildings listed on the National Historic Register. Not every town can boast of a community theater playhouse organization that produces and performs annual outdoor summer musicals and have had their winter shows at the Macc. Not every town has a 4th of July parade that ends a community barbecue by the Lions Club, which they also meet at the Macc. And there are many other things which I'll not list here. Please do not take action to dismantle what we have accomplished over the past 19 years. But, it's right there, it's the very end. It's okay. But instead, work with our citizens to continue to grow our Department of Art and Culture with our beloved Mountain Arts Community Center, truly valued as a center for our community. Partnering with nonprofit organizations like the new 501c3 and the Signal Mountain Playhouse and other organizations in our community offers a truly win-win for everyone. I urge you, please do not divest yourself of our Department of Art and Culture, of which the Macc is the heart and the center. And thank you for your time.
Ma'am, thank you very much.
Yes, I can send this to
Okay.
you with some other,
And as you sit down, you don't have to stay up, but if you don't mind, Boyd, would you kind of go over where we were on that, because it's not on our agenda, and you at
I know
least...
that it's not on the agenda.
I understand, I'm gonna have, you can go back, sit down, but he'll address what's happened and where we are at this point, and we're a long way from being anywhere on that.
At this point, with discussions with the 501c or the nonprofit, I was asked to create documents that capture their proposal. And in doing that, also obviously addressed on the front end some of the things that the town would need in place. So creating a lease agreement for the building and then a memorandum of agreement for the operation was part of that process, and those are being created. I have sent the MOA to Phil, but that really is just capturing what the proposal is. So at that point is when the discussions begin. The discussions relative to selling were initiated by Mr. Cannon, and was really the question of, is this something that's possible? Nothing has happened beyond that. There hasn't been a proposal. If that comes, then that will be the time for discussion. Any of these that happen, if any of these were to move towards fruition, there would be a process associated with that, including having to go before the Planning Commission for review and a recommendation. If we lease town property, certainly if we sell town property, it would have to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and a recommendation made to council. I can't imagine that either of those scenarios would not involve public input. But the fact of the matter is, we're on the public-private partnership prospect. We're really just getting to the point where those discussions can take place, because what we've done to now is just trying to capture what the proposal is, with the addition of obvious issues that the town would need addressed, and then that's the starting point for discussions.
So we're in very, very early stages of discussion, and I don't think the council's really pointed us in any direction at this point.
Can I add one thing? In the meantime, the nonprofit, which isn't even a 501c3 yet, is in the process of raising money and having fundraisers specifically to try to save the back half of the building, regardless of what the council decides. So, and we had prior weekend, almost, I think it was 39 people show up, citizens that were called, and citizens coming up and painting, scraping, sanding, making the building better, plus saying they want to contribute to try, because I just want you to know, Colleen, and I can't address all your questions right now, but when I get your letter, I will. I think our council should also, we shouldn't be in the situation where the back half of the building is in danger. We were $70,000 shy of sprinkling the entire building. And we're about to come up to budget negotiations again. If this is something that's important to citizens need to let council know that entire building is important and it's used from cafeteria to the front door. So.
And I believe, it's my understanding from what I've seen that all groups that have been involved and have reached out have a deep caring for the Macc and want to see it succeed. And, to Dan's credit, he took the initiative to get a group together on the 501c3 end.
It's not true.
I'm sorry, friends of Dan.
Well, it was completely separate from Dan.
Okay.
It was completely separate from Dan.
I'm sorry. There was some very good citizens who got together and approached us with the idea. Again, very early stages. And those folks should also be commended in the work that they've done, not knowing where this is going to go to help preserve that building.
Thank you.
You went already. You're going again, but you were really short, so we'll give you at least 2 more minutes.
She brought up a point that I think needs to be addressed by this council.
Okay.
And that is, things happen at other meetings, like your agenda meeting on Friday, that when you originally started that at noon on Friday, You said you would not be holding votes. You are holding votes there. Lots of times this council needs to vote twice in a public meeting to make something go into action. And you just did it on the last meeting, and I wish you'd quit that, having votes when people can't see what's going on Friday at noon.
I'd like to correct that record. What the council did, the council's fully within its authority to do votes, to take votes during those agenda meetings. They are public meetings. But what we did as a council at the beginning of this council is said we would not vote on issues that pertain to financial matters until it came to the regular meeting. So I just want to clarify that.
Go ahead. Qualify that unless there were time constraints.
Emergency, right.
Unusual.
Like I think we've done one since this council's been in place, but it was to make sure that we got a reduced cost on a piece of equipment that we had to get in. This is not a back and forth, sir.
I didn't say it was, but my point is that if you're going to hold private meetings, and if essentially a Friday at noon is a private meeting, let's not call it open.
Sir, all the meetings are published as of the time when those meetings will occur. They're not occurring at a private meeting. The aspect of any vacation or lease or sale of any property has to go through public meetings that would have to occur, be sent to the planning commission before that can occur. Because that happens, that's required by state law, it will be done.
May I ask something?
Yep.
I'd like to ask that we discuss this at the next work session. That it has been something I wanted to bring up. Obviously, we've had a busy year. That possibly our during the day meetings, especially with as many things going on, as important as they are now, might need to be at least consider moving to the evening, because it is hard for people who also work to leave work, and it might make it easier for more people to consider running for the council as well. If it didn't require you to do things to leave your work during the day.
Thank you, Dan.
Who's next? Ma'am?
Sandy McCrae, 1058 Whipplewell Drive. For 10 years, I served on the Macc board. For many years before that, I served on Friends of Macc. I concur in much of what Coleen and Wally have said here. The one point I would like to make to this council, because my term for the Macc board ended in December, I very much want to encourage this council to discuss with the Macc board the future of the Macc. I do not feel that you seek our input. It was in part my job, it is the job of the board to look after the best interests of the Macc. That's what they're charged with by ordinance. It seems to me that if you seek recommendations from other groups or suggestions about how things should proceed for school boards or for planning or for trees, then maybe you should listen a little more to the people who serve on the Macc board, because they have given their heart and soul to the Macc, and most of them have been on the board for many years, and they have a far better grasp of Macc's problems, its issues, what it does, and what it offers to our community than any of you do. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's Nathan Bell,
932.
I've never been in front of one of these before. It's Nathan Bell, 932 Signal Road.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, Sandy McCrae did an amazing job for the last 10 years. Macc board won't be the same without her. As a matter of fact, if there's not a public proclamation for us in earlier, it's a mistake. I'm here not because people know my opinion, and I was on that board, which I left to teach at the Macc. And now I have 22 students in a very short period of time. Most of whom I teach the annoying electric guitar because I have issues with parents, and I like to make their life a little more comfortable. But what I wanted to say was, there's been a real lack of what I see as transparency, maybe unintentionally. In the last years I was there with the board, I felt like a lot was going on that we didn't know about. I had strong opinions about the Macc remaining with the town, but that's not important. If there's a legitimate conversation, we end up going a different road, I'm okay with that. But we're taking a lot of this out in public. and it's embarrassing. I find the Facebook, Twitter wars, it's unseemly, and it's not how this town should behave. And that goes for everybody, including some of the people standing behind me. We're grown people trying to have a great community. If I were you, I'd close every Facebook account for every council member here. I think it's a mistake, and we look foolish, and that's where I'm at.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
I can testify to Nathan Bell as a guitar instructor. Just want to let you know, if you have any dreams of ever playing guitar, he's as good as it gets. So he's there at Macc. He's great. If you ever hear him play, you'll never forget it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else before we close down public hearing or public comment? All right. Citizens' opportunity to address council is closed, and we'll move on to item number 8, presentation of land use plan 2018. Jennifer Williams, our regional planner.
I'm Jennifer Williams. I staff at Planning Commission, and while this is coming back on, I hope.
Jennifer, turn that mic towards you and somebody make sure it's turned on. So
It is turned on.
Is it good?
All right, so
There's some more seats if y'all want to come in. Some were just vacated. Give us a second, Jennifer, if you would. Anybody else out there? Is it empty? Some seats right back there. All you, thank you.
So for the last year, more than a year, the town's planning commission has been working on updating the land use plan, which was originally adopted in 2008. And at their last meeting, they recommended this updated land use plan to the town council for adoption. In the coming months, the planning commission plans to have a series of public charrettes to sort of look at the broader themes of the plan. But for now, we have done a pretty major update that brings the plan from 2008 to 2018. I'm going to speak about that for a couple minutes and a few slides, and then any comments you have. So first of all, some background, what is the land use plan? The land use plan is not a legislative document, it is a guiding document, and its purpose is to create an ideology that helps towns make decisions about all sorts of development issues, public services, preservation of natural resources, all kinds of things. And the town land use plan has a series of primary principles that were in the 2008 plan, they're in this updated plan, and I just wanted to throw them out here so you all can see. The biggest item is to protect small town quality of life, and that involves both quality residential and commercial development that protects neighborhoods. The plan also wants to ensure that the town is providing the best public services possible. And then finally, of serious importance is the preservation of natural resources. So these main principles sort of drive all the recommendations that your land use plan makes. So in this update that the Planning Commission has undertaken, this is a list of some of the major changes that have been done, and I'll have a quick slide on each of these, so we'll go through them all. First of all, obviously in a 10-year time period, you want to have updated demographic data, so that includes the 2010 census, as well as the latest American Community Survey data, which right now is up to 2016. We also included some additional information about building permits, residential home prices and sales, that sort of thing, the latest information.
Can I ask a quick question? That chart shows that in 5 years we grew almost 1,000.
Annexation.
But that's due to the annexation of Wintry and Fox Run, correct?
Yes.
All right.
I'm sure there's some natural growth in there as well. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We also updated all the maps that the plan contains, and as we just mentioned, one of the biggest things that changed with those maps is that properties have been annexed since 2008. So we updated zoning and land use for those areas, as well as reflecting any changes that have occurred over the last 10 years. At the middle school site, at the time the 2008 plan was adopted, there was a big question of, what would happen in regards to the middle school site, and the land use plan spent a lot of time talking about that. So in our update, we focused on what has occurred there, if you can see here. The sewer moratorium, Dick G was very helpful with me in terms of getting the most up-to-date information possible related to the sewer moratorium and how that impacts development on the mountain and how it could potentially change in the future. We also updated the transportation chapter. So in the 2008 land use plan and in this update, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure are very important. But a bicycle and pedestrian plan has been under development for the past year or so, and we wanted to make sure that the land use plan referenced that document, which should be finalized very soon. And then probably one of the largest changes that was made was that the Planning Commission added a chapter on parks and recreation. Parks and recreation are a very important town service, an important part of land use, and it was not addressed very well in the previous plan, so we added a new chapter. This chapter inventories all the town-owned recreation sites. It incorporates the results of an online survey that was conducted at the end of 2017, which had over 400 responses. So it shows some information about that survey, and then a complete copy of responses is included in the appendices now. And it also has some priority projects and implementation strategies for major recreation improvements in town. So moving forward, if you all adopt this plan tonight, I think that the Planning Commission's largest goal in updating the plan, aside from making it factually correct for 2018, to ensure that it's a document that is truly used by all town boards when making any sort of decisions about development, whether commercial or residential, or even capital improvements projects the town may choose to take on. So that's all I have, and if y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just want you to get a notion of what this is. That's not a multiple copies. That is the copy of the plan. It's an extensive document. Jennifer's wonderful brief report at this point doesn't really clearly reflect the work that went into making this document what it is. And Dan and I serve on the planning commission, and we're happy to do that. And I think the planning commission has done a great job. The frustration that I'm not going to speak for them, but I think we share the same frustration as the disconnect, somewhat of a disconnect between the planning commission and the town council. There's no real official, even though we will adopt this land use plan, it's a guide. It's not a requirement that we follow it. And so we somewhat, you wonder, well, what's it all for? And so we wrestle with that and try to, and I think at some point we need to address that and make it more of a directive rather than a recommendation. So, but thank you for your wonderful help and hard work in making this thing perfect. We appreciate it very, very much. Good job.
I'd just like to reiterate one thing that Jennifer said, that this really is an update to the land use plan, but it's really a phase of the overall update. And the next phase will be public meetings and charrettes that will encourage, invite, and allow public input to ensure that the driving ideals and premises in this document are still what the community feels is appropriate. So by adopting this, we're not preventing or foregoing that part of the process. Just to clarify, when Jennifer talked about the incorporation of the section for parks and recreation, that in fact becomes the town's plan for Parks and Recreation, which is one of the requirements for the LPRF grant that we're applying for. So in adopting this portion of the update now, it will facilitate us being able to move forward with that grant. But it's not a definitive final adoption. It is just a step in the process, and the next phases are yet to come.
Dan, Bob? No. Just the only thing I would add to it is the importance of the land use plan will help, especially after the charrette is done. And I'll confess, I thought that was named after someone. So in case anybody else wonders specifically what a charrette is, it's just a fancy word for study, but it's a study that involves looking at maps and making plans. And so when those charrettes are coming up, that's when this stuff is going to happen. And I think the importance of the land use plan, based on the way Dick was saying, I agree completely, puts you in a position where developers look at what citizens have said they want the town to be like, rather than developers coming along and then citizens deciding if they like what the developer wants to do. And so it's important that we have public participation in that. And that even goes all the way back to the Macc. In the recreation study, we made sure we incorporated the Macc in that as well. So but there is as much excitement about being involved in that process when that starts. Because if not, it's just the people on the planning commission, and everyone up here and everyone on the planning commission works for citizens. It's not the other way around. So come out and be involved.
Just kind of clarify, I understand the importance to get it done for the grant, and that is important, but it seems premature to approve a plan before we get the input and have a chance to amend it, given what we hear. Or is it, I'm trying to make this jive.
Again, this approval is just for the first phase of the update. All the things that Jennifer went through have all been updated so that when the citizens start this process, they're dealing with as current a document as possible.
So this process will take some time, some meetings, and then we will have the opportunity to approve and adopt a final plan once that happens.
Right. And well, not necessarily a final plan, but a current plan.
Correct. Or
it can be updated at any point.
Does it go back to the planning commission then before it comes back up here? Okay.
We'll go through the whole process again. So months down the road, when those things have been done, we will revisit this, and the new updates driven by citizen input will be incorporated.
And did we mention April is when we're talking about having a charrette?
Yeah, trying to get some dates together for end of April or beginning of May for charrette.
I want to commend you on your work. I haven't been able to go all the way through this, but there's some really good stuff in here. Thanks for your efforts on this. Does somebody want to give a motion?
I'll second. We haven't gotten to that. We were just.
Oh, is that later?
Is that? Oh, she's coming up next.
Are you still presenting, or are you done?
I'm not.
Let's move on to resolutions then.
Now we're ready for
resolution. Resolution number 2018-19, a resolution to adopt the Signal Mountain Land Use Plan, whereas Signal Mountain Town Council desires to guide future growth and redevelopment to protect quality of life within the town, and whereas the land use plan outlines how, when, and where net growth, redevelopment, and preservation should occur, and whereas the Signal Mountain Planning Commission adopted the land use plan on January 16, 2008, and whereas the Signal Mountain Planning Commission has updated this plan and recommended it to the Town Council for adoption at their March 1st, 2018 meeting. Be it resolved by the Town Council, the Town of Signal Mountain, Tennessee, that the Signal Mountain Land Use Plan is hereby adopted, the public welfare requiring it. So we have a first and second?
I'll move for approval.
Second. Okay. Further discussion? Bob?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0.
Can I ask a question? When will this be available for public to read it as adopted?
They can request it tomorrow in hard copy, and we'll get it on the website.
Can we get it?
In the next few days.
Okay. Anybody interested in that? The adopted land use plan will be on the website in the next few days. And please, we welcome your comments and input. Next on our, anything else, Dan? Dan? No, anything else? Resolution 9B, let's see. A resolution authorizing the distribution of the Town of Signal Mountains Water Fund. Is this right, Carol?
That is correct.
Okay. Water fund in lieu of ad valorem tax payments on the property of the public works within the town for the water system for fiscal year 2017-18 in the sum of $25,137. Can I get a motion, or you want to explain it first?
This is state law allows municipalities that operate utilities can collect pilot, recognizing that the municipality provides support to the utility. We calculate and collect this for the last several years, so this is this current year's.
And we've never been called into question how we calculate that.
No.
And the auditors are fine with all that. Great. Can I get a motion? Second. Dr. Spaulding. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries 4-0, Karen. Next on the list is Resolution 2018-21, a resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract with Johnson, Murphy, and Wright PC to audit town accounts from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, and to provide payment for municipal auditing services performed on town accounts for that time period not to exceed $24,800.
Second.
We have a first and second. Did you get those?
What I'd like to do now is, Phil, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes,
Just explain the professional requirement or how we are able to select them without going out for RFP, and because the issue came up at the prior meeting.
Okay, so
About the possibility of going out.
and you're dissatisfied with his services at some point in time, or his firm's services, you can clearly go out and consider someone else in that regard, but professional
Phil,
services.
can you pull the mic up? I'm having a hard time even down.
Does this work better?
Much better.
All right. Professional services under state law at this point in time, particularly for financial services and attorney services, accounting services, educational services, to some extent here are exempt from the normal bidding requirements under state law. So those provisions for professional services are allowed. There's a similar provision for engineers and architects whenever you deal with construction projects. It is now moved to a different section of the Tennessee Code, which allows those professional services to be considered. Someone has to have a license. If they do not have a license to practice their trade in the state, they could not get that. That's the way it works.
How many consecutive years have we used?
14.
I don't know that.
I mean, it was 14. You 14?
I believe it's 14.
And we're obviously happy with their service.
They're very thorough.
Yeah. So I just wanted to discuss, to have that discussion on tape. So,
and that's very fair.
Yeah, that we consider that, and as we approve, again, using the same accounting firm.
Right. A question was raised, does it make sense to continue to use the same accounting firm for so long? Does that take away from the quality of their report in any way?
I think, number one, I want to state that Johnson, Murphy, and Wright have done, for at least the 4 years I've been in, and I dug through the financials a couple of years before I ran, but I think they've done an exceptional job, and they understand the town, they understand what we do. But in the same vein, I do think it is, and I don't think we address it here, but I just want to get on the record that I think at some point, after 14 years or however much any of our other professional services have been, I do think it's healthy for an organization every once in a while to go out to bid for these services. And again, I am not saying that Johnson, Murphy, and Wright have done anything wrong whatsoever, but I do think it's nice to have a new, fresh set of eyes, or at least see what else is out there in the marketplace every once in a while. It doesn't have to be done every year, but I just think it is something that this council should consider doing maybe next year to see what else is out there. And usually the best firm wins out, and I think that's a healthy thing to look at occasionally. Just on record for that.
If I might, just as a point of clarification, if you're going to do that, it would be an RFQ process as opposed to the RFP or bid.
What's the key? Qualification.
In these instances, we are directed to select a firm, entity, person based on their qualifications and expertise. We're actually not allowed to base that on price. We can't get any price until we select who we think is the best, and then we negotiate the price.
And again, I want to reiterate that I think they do a phenomenal job, but it brings up the issue of non-RFQing several professional services, and I just think every once in a while you need to take a look what else is out there and get some other ideas in.
As someone who's still a green council member, and will probably go out a green council member, it seems on decisions like these, this is where I would defer mostly to the town manager that actually deals with it. And if Boyd was recommending something, then it would seem like we should, but there have been no problems with adjustment.
And I have no objection to an RFQ process, but I would have to say that we've been extremely pleased with their service, and very frankly, the reason I like them is because I know they will lower the boom if they need to. They come in, they're tough, they take a very broad look at our operation, but every year they come in and they focus on something different. We have no idea what that's going to be. They force us, not that that would necessarily be necessary, but they force us to do a good job across the board because they do a very good job.
It seems,
again, that's not an argument against an RFQ process.
Right. Well, they made Carol nervous, and I didn't think anything could make Carol nervous.
And again, I want to go on record. I think they're doing a great job. I just think every once in a while it makes sense to.
We're going to leave that to a future council.
Right, exactly. We have a first.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion. I think that
we have a first and second, don't we?
We do.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Next, we have, this is a long one, Resolution 2018-22, a resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into an agreement with AD Engineering Services, Inc. for professional services associated with preliminary design and establishing construction cost estimates for the renovation and improvement project for Marion and Driver Fields and accessory structures for the amount of $9,450 and subject to project approval and funding. Professional services associated with design, bidding, and construction phase services for the project for the amount of $57,500, resulting in a total not to exceed amount of $66,950. Boyd, could you give us a...
Yes, sir. We did go through an RFQ process and selected this firm to work with us on the grant we spoke about earlier for the renovations, improvements. Marion and Driver Fields, they're the oldest facilities that we have and are in need of significant improvement. We are applying for a grant. To do so, we need a preliminary design and their input on cost estimates for the project. That is the $9,450. If we are awarded the grant, if council approves accepting the grant and the associated project, then they would continue and provide the actual engineering for the project, which is extensive. We're going to be looking at drainage, improving the electrical system, putting in a new restroom facility, and
Extending the
left field, creating a remaster.
Where's Bill went down? We really did.
We put this, and we've been working with them up until today to really make sure we kind of got this so that if the grant isn't obtained, the town's exposure is as limited as possible. And I think the work they'll do on the 9450 could be useful regardless. So
we're not on the hook initially for the $57,500 unless the grant comes through.
If the grant comes through and council approves the project, then we will move forward.
So we have a chance to, okay.
But
we need this
the agreement
to get the grant.
Puts phase 1 and phase 2 together. We will only go into phase 2 if the grant is received and council approves the project.
Boyd or Sam, what is the grant? What is the grant amount?
That's what we're asking them to determine. Okay. That's part of phase 1 is looking at what we want to do in establishing a reasonable cost estimate.
Do we know if there's a match or do they cover 100%? It's a 50-50 match. Okay.
Which would include engineering costs.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
A second.
We've got a first and second. Discussion, please.
I think we just need to, I think Jennifer was very helpful in developing, working with us on this grant, so I'd just like to acknowledge her contribution.
Thank you again, Jennifer. How do we look on it? Sam?
I think it's a very competitive project and a good project. And I think next month you all will see a resolution related to the project when we have some costs on the table, but I think it's a strong and competitive application.
All right. Thank you all for your work on it.
And this fits each grant cycle, they tend to have a focus.
You will make one citizen extremely happy if this goes.
I just wish he was here.
I know. Where is he?
Bill Gallagher. You know, everybody know Bill Gallagher.
Oh, great.
He's been trying to get us to extend, which field is it?
Driver.
The left field foul line to 300 feet ever since I've been on town council.
So they can have legitimate softball tournaments. It's the field that the men's church softball league uses.
Right.
Plus, I think the girls softball league up here too also uses it.
And girls get rained out all the time because the field isn't drained.
But we have new drainage in both of them, right?
No, not yet.
One of them? We've done some drainage in it.
No, not this one yet. These are bad still. It's really bad.
All right, we have a first and second. Any further conversation on this topic?
I'm obviously voting for this because recreation and arts are both important things that we should have, and we should take care of what we own as a town so that our citizens can use the facilities that we have. So, you bet.
Any other comments? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Next on our agenda, we move on to public hearing for the rezoning. Don't we have to go through the first reading first?
How
do you have a public hearing before you have if it doesn't pass, then you don't have a public.
It's how we determine how we should vote.
In our last meeting, we determined that we would have this on the agenda and retain it on the agenda since this has been discussed in prior meetings. The first reading passed, we revisited, there were additional stipulations attached to it. This is an additional public hearing. The required public hearing will take place in advance of the second reading.
Okay, so this is
an additional opportunity to hear from the citizens.
we've added another one, but it is not actually the official one.
Right. There was not enough time to advertise it.
So it doesn't matter if we do it ahead or after. Okay. So we are opening up the public hearing for the rezoning LDR to OD-1403 at Taft Highway. That's the property at the corner of Albert and Taft, correct? Okay. Would anybody like to start us off again? Is it 3 minutes? Is it the same? So it goes as long as you want it?
Well, it's sort of interactive.
Okay. All right.
Name and address, please.
Okay. As you come up, I don't think there's a time limit, but we would ask you to be wary of everyone's time and effort up here. And when you come up, please state your name and an address for the record. Sir, if you'd like to go, Mr. Evans.
My name is David Evans, 609 Carolina Avenue. What I'd like to suggest to the town is that if you look behind you at the photographs, I don't know Jennifer's last name, so I apologize, but the very first photograph that was on her presentation on the planning or plan, whatever it was she just adopted a little while ago. Look at that picture, and then think about looking at whether it's La Raphael's or McDonald's or any of the other pretty-looking commercial infrastructure this town has built. I would say that our land use plans have been more of a model along Rossville Boulevard or Benkert Road, often called Brainless Road. Okay. What are the limiting principles as you continue to expand this? Our plan, we heard someone from the trees today. I remember when I moved here, there was septic effluent. I came back early from New York. My daughter was riding her big wheels, 4 years old, and it was running across my driveway. Dick G had a ditch, an open ditch that ran behind his house every time it rained. The septic effluent was disgusting, and it runs into the creek at the bottom of the hill. It's just more underground now, and our streams are all, polluted up here now. We have terrible land use planning. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Replace those pictures, replace Jennifer's first photograph with photographs of commercial development. Articulate what it is that you think is the limiting principle as you expand Taft Boulevard, soon to be known as Rossville Boulevard North, track by track, into parking lots and commercial development. I don't think that this is consistent with the photographs this town has chosen to put on the walls behind you, is consistent with the photograph Jennifer used as her opening photograph. I think this town has a really big problem. I think developers for too long have had too big a control in this town. We've had one recall election already, first successful recall election in the state. Walden went to 2-acre zoning. We still build tract housing here. We stripped down all the trees off of James Boulevard. They uprooted it, sawed down every tree in there. They put these houses on these tract plots. We don't really have a plan that is commensurate with the photographs behind you. I think it's time to stop, think, and restart all over again. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Edmonson. I live at 704 Albert Road. And like he said, I am opposing this for a variety of reasons. I feel like the overriding principles of the land use plan, one of them stated that it was to respect adjacent residential property. And I don't live exactly behind where this proposed office development is going to go. My understanding is that it's going to be 25 to 30 feet is going to be the buffer, between this development and the next house. I've also heard a rumor that there are 4 lots that were purchased by a known developer in this town. So it seems to me like this is a domino effect. And we haven't articulated what the land use plan is for this. I feel like you put a sign up, the residents react. After you've already talked to the developer, My understanding, according to the land use plan, is that Albert Road was the line of demarcation for all commercial development. There are other commercial developments on the mountain that are currently empty. I don't know that there's a demand for office property per se. It seems to me like it's a, if we build it, they will come sort of speculation. And it seems like the decision is being driven by the developer and not by the town citizens or the town council or the land use committee. So I just would like for you all to reconsider this, table it, let the citizens have an impact on the current land use plan. My understanding is that there will be open public forums to discuss the land use plan. And let us revisit this. I don't think any traffic studies were done. Albert Road is a mess. There are potholes. There are water issues. The land is grass, trees. We're Tree City, USA. Mrs. Womack made the comment that there are very few cities that are tree cities. Do we want to not be a tree city? Because there are some beautiful trees on this land that will be cut down. All of the water that currently seeps through the grass will be on asphalt and will run down Albert Road and will cause flooding issues. So I would just like the council to maybe reconsider this vote, do some land studies, traffic studies, engineering, get more input from the citizens. We currently have at least 130, maybe more, petition signatures against this. So there are a lot of citizens that are against this development. We want to try to limit the development. We don't want a shopping center or more asphalt. That's what makes Signal Mountain desirable and beautiful. That's what keeps our property values up. And Albert Road already has a lot of traffic issues. People speed on our street. It's a bus stop. A lot of kids have to walk home, and it would increase traffic. So I would appreciate your reconsideration of this vote. Thank you very much.
May I, before the next speaker, may I respond to something for Susan? And this is for everyone's benefit as well. There's 3 short paragraphs from the land use plan, the one that we just adopted tonight, that apply to the area between Coffin Way and Albert Road. And with your permission, I'd like to read those so that we're all talking. Sure. Are you guys okay with that?
Absolutely.
Less than 2 minutes. So this is, when you look at the new land use plan, it's page 49, if you want to find this.
Page 49?
Page 49. Some expansion of the existing, start again. Some expansion of this existing center may be appropriate to provide the town and its residents the wider range of services present in a small town. However, any expansion should be carefully considered. Development of this area should be sensitive to the sloping topography and any streams nearby. All development should be accessed off of Taft Highway. Additionally, any development or redevelopment in this focus area should provide a buffer between the development and any nearby residences. The size and type of buffer can be determined as a condition of rezoning or as part of the site plan. Most appropriately developed as a whole, rather than on a parcel-by-parcel basis, development of this focus area should ideally provide transitional space between higher intensity uses and the surrounding residential neighborhoods. An example of this stepped approach would be a high-density residential development or office space providing a transition between a high-traffic commercial node and single-family residences. In this case, the surrounding neighborhoods are those on Albert Road and those on Coffin. So that's what we discussed, and that's what came from the Planning Commission, and that's that section as we voted on tonight, just so that everybody hears. Depending on the way you feel about this, you could interpret those paragraphs different ways. I think everyone would agree about, but I just wanted to get that out there. One important note was the Taft Highway, and something to note on this particular rezone is that actually, if TDOT doesn't allow access from Taft Highway, it defaults to Albert Road. Isn't that what's in this rezone resolution tonight? So there's a problem right there already for us to consider. And I see our role here as town council slightly different than our role as planning commission, because what's good planning may not make good sense for the town at the time based on the climate and based on the things that Susan said, and that's kind of where I'm going. I wish this was a couple of months farther down the road when we'd had time, but we have no control over that.
That's what I'm talking. We'll find out what they have to say.
Who'd like to be next? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Lana Rodella, and my address is 614 Miles Road. The reason that I came tonight and the reason I wanted to speak to the council is that, although I'm not living on Albert Road, I do live directly behind the acreage that is adjacent to this property that is up for the proposed rezoning. So that when I sit out on my back deck, I'm able to see this property, the beautiful trees. I also see the amount of water runoff that comes through my yard and then onto the 2 acres or so that are next to the Taft Albert property. And I agree with the citizens and council members that acknowledge the beauty of the town, what draws people to the town, what keeps people here. And I would just ask that as this goes on further in the process and consideration and, the thoughtful consideration about what is really appropriate, just understand that this eats into a neighborhood that is on 2 very short streets that connect to James into the elementary school. The question I ask, and I don't mean it to be inflammatory in nature, but when are we going to stop allowing benefit to the one when it's to the detriment of the community and the neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Mary Hutson. My husband Dean and I live at 1150 James Boulevard. We've been residents of Signal Mountain since 1979, and we actually were participants in the charrettes that resulted in the 2008 land use plan, which most recently was revised. And we are opposed to this rezoning at 1403 Taft. We believe that expanding the commercial zone across Albert Road will encroach upon existing residential neighborhoods. It will set a precedent for future commercial rezoning requests along Taft Highway, and that it's not in keeping with the vision and the wishes that were expressed by our residents, including us, in the 2008 land use plan. Specifically, on page 33 of the plan, it refers to the desires of the residents that were expressed during those charrettes. And one of the desires was to preserve, protect, and enhance the small town quality of life in Signal Mountain. Another desire was to provide for concentrated commercial centers, serving the needs of residents. A third, there are many, was to protect the environment and natural resources within the town. Specifically, and I'll refer you to the pages, in the previous land use plan that's on the website right now, which is still the land use plan, but before the updates, on page 55, as Dan referred to the focus area of Taft Highway from Coffin Way to the town limits. In the original land use plan, it states that to avoid the stripping of non-residential development along Taft Highway, a firm edge needs to be established with transitional uses or distinct features such as right-of-ways. Now, in the revision that you just adopted, it's not very different. It's just in more general terms. It's on page 49. And the recent update speaks to, more generally, to saying most appropriately developed as a whole rather than on a parcel-by-parcel basis, using a stepped-down approach. So I really wanted to understand that, and I even called Jennifer Williams today, just to understand that basically these are saying the same thing. So, this is really important for you to know, but you may already know it. There is a 1-acre lot next to Ashley Plaza, and it is zoned office district. When Ashley Plaza was built around 1993, the town leaders obviously saw the need for a commercial edge or a step-down approach. This office district lot that is 1 acre continues to serve as the commercial edge or the step-down approach from highway commercial, and Albert Road serves as the right-of-way. So, expanding the commercial zone across Albert Road to one property owner will no doubt result in further commercial rezoning requests. In 2016, the owner and developer of Walden Commons purchased the 2 adjacent wooded residential lots facing Taft and the two more residential lots facing Miles, which this speaker before me referred to, that her home looks back into the woods. This is a total of 4 acres of residentially zoned land. No doubt, you know, if this rezoning is approved, that developer owner will come before you with his request. And then jumping Miles to the end of the town limits would be next. And just in the past couple of weeks, 2 more residential properties between Albert Road to just past Coffin Way beside the post office have come up for sale. And they're being marketed as suitable for commercial rezoning. Moreover, the land use plan speaks of commercial services meeting the needs of the residents. To my knowledge, there has not been any gap analysis or analysis of gaps in services within our town done by the developer or by our town to point out the need for this office complex of 12,000 square feet, 50 plus parking spaces. And also, keeping in mind, I learned recently that next to Walden Commons, where there was a service station where buses are parked, the Walden Town Hall tells those who ask that this has been slated for a medical office complex. So the proposal for the lot at Albert and Taft appears to be speculative, and we don't know that it will serve our needs. And last, in the land use plan, page 51, there's a reference that jumped out to me, and that is maintaining or maintenance of a balance among land uses within the town, favoring residential over commercial, requiring the town to protect its residential property tax base. Thank you for listening. My husband Dean and I ask that you vote no for this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Yes, sir.
My name's Alan Boch at 609 Albert Road. I just want to face facts. I mean, we're here for one reason. It's about money. There's one developer that's wanting to make money. There's somebody wanting to sell the property, wanting to make money. And to be honest with you, I own the property right. I don't want to lose money. Just like anybody else here would not want to lose money. I promise you that. So I think of this property that my parents bought years and years ago. They left it to me when they passed away, and I would love to leave this to my daughter. And in that course of time, I'm going to recoup my money back. I've got this for a long, long term. So the money I'm going to lose when this property is sold and goes commercial, I'm going to recoup that over a long period of time. I realize that. But there are a lot of people that live in that neighborhood that will not have that luxury. They will have to sell their home to move to another place or some other reason they would move. And they're going to take financial losses for two people basically to take a profit on this. So I want y'all to think about that, because that really is going to hurt everybody. Several years back, we were going to sell that house on Albert Road, and the traffic was so bad then we could not sell the property. So we ended up having to rent the property out. So that takes me to my second point. The road is in such bad shape. The last time I was here, I asked y'all if the town was going to pay to rebuild that road. And that's another one of the long-term solutions. That sooner or later, that road is going to cave in bad enough to where you're going to have to spend a lot of money to repave that road. I think I've sent all y'all pictures of it flooding every time it rains. I sent you pictures of it caving in. It kind of just waffles like that. It's a very narrow road when you have school buses on there. You have a lot of people traveling that road. With the new subdivision being built at the top of the hill, it's going to be even more traffic on that road. To put an office complex coming off of Albert Road is reckless, to say the very, very least. And really the last point that I want to bring up is I've lived on this mountain for 42 years. I plan on being up here until I'm dead and gone. And in that process, you start looking around, like the gentleman said at first, at the Raphaels, at the mountain market at the foot of the mountain or the front of the mountain, and you see buildings that are just falling in, condemned, and we're not doing anything about that as a town. This looks terrible when people drive through our city, and to put more resident or more business property up here when we can't support what we already have is reckless and irresponsible on everybody in this council's position. So I think we really need to look at what we really need, what we have on this mountain, and then come up with a plan. If something is not successful, are we going to let it sit there and fall in, or are we going to do something about it? Are we going to force the owners of that property to do something with it? For anybody that's lived up here any length of time, they've seen the shopping centers transform over the years, where the chicken joint is right now, it used to be a CVS. Where the El Mete is now, it used to be a 5 and dime back when I was a kid. Everything keeps changing, and I'm sure probably when these places were approved years and years ago, nobody had any idea that we'd be serving liquor over in the shopping center. But that's what we have now, and I really don't want that in my backyard, because in 5-10 years from now, if this development does not go the way we think, and we've got empty property sitting there, we're going to do anything we can to get somebody in that building to rent it out, to pay taxes and do whatever else. So that just kind of opens the door to another restaurant or another car wash or drive-through or whatever it may be right there. So once again, just because we approve something one time, don't think it's never going to change. Because once you take that cork out, all games are off. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good luck to that.
I'm Carson Boch, the daughter that was spoken of, 609 Albert Road. Earlier in this community forum, there was a petition that was mentioned, and we have 109 petitions or 109 signatures on that petition, and I have a copy of it if you guys would like to have a copy.
Please.
I think there are.
Would you make sure, Carol?
I think there are 8 copies there. And in addition, we have a website with over 350 page views, and that is just in a little over a month since the website was launched. Given that there wasn't a very large range of time where the community knew about this, let alone where I had time between schoolwork to make a website. The website, if there's anybody who's wanting to look at it, is www.albertagainstrezoning.weebly.com. The link to that website and to the petition is on Facebook, and then the link to the petition is also on the website. In school, we've been talking about how effective arguments always use ethos, pathos, and logos. So I figured I should break down the ethos, the credibility, the pathos, the emotional element, and the logos, the logic of this argument. As far as the ethos goes, there are over 140 people who have signed the petition both online and in print. And even more who are following this issue faithfully both online and at meetings. With the pathos of this issue, the town council, by approving this, is going to be permitting someone to tear down a family home, which will not only move the family out of their home, it will displace countless forms of wildlife from their natural habitats. As far as the logos goes, and I'm going to warn you, there is quite a bit of logos here in this argument. There is the dilemma that was previously mentioned of the entrance. As far as it's very risky to do one on Taft Highway, as there's no turning lane there on Taft, and that could cause severe congestion. But on Albert Road, this would also cause a backup, as the entrance would have to be so close to the street that there wouldn't be a very large waiting area where cars to turn in. There's also the issue that was brought up of stormwater runoff. There's already such a big flooding problem on Albert that adding a paved parking lot would not help this issue at all. As was previously mentioned, Albert Road is in deteriorating shape under the use that it's currently in, and that shape is only going to get worse with the subdivision being built at the top of Albert, let alone with an office complex and construction going on Albert Road. Additionally, there would be added traffic congestion, both with construction workers during the building of this proposed office complex and the eventual workers of this proposed office complex. This wouldn't be like a commercial zone where there's only people going in and out during business hours. This is an office complex where there's going to be people there all throughout the day that are going in every day, twice a day, which will tear down our road, which is already in horrible shape. There's also the issue of light pollution. Light pollution is something that the residents of Albert already have problems with the subway signs from Ashley Plaza. Also brought up tonight, as I'm sure you saw, the land use plan. Given this is a guide, it does raise some questions about the town going against previous ideas of what we wanted to be as a town. The land use plan outlines that we want to be a town that has a preference towards the residents, that wants to make sure that existing properties are used wisely and make Sigma Mountain a place that people want to live. This could change all of that and go against all of our town's ideals. And I don't know about everyone else sitting in this auditorium tonight, but it kind of makes me wonder how much you can trust the town council if they're going against the previous ideals of a good town. There's also the issue of visual and audio disturbances to the neighbors in the area, both on Albert and on Coffin Way. This would not only be an issue during construction, but also once the proposed office complex was established with the light pollution I previously mentioned. And there was somebody here tonight that also mentioned the domino effect that this would cause. There are already signs up all across town of other properties that are for sale and that would like to be rezoned. If you rezone this property, there's nothing stopping you from rezoning countless others. In fact, it makes it easier to rezone others as they can say, well, you rezone that one, why can't you rezone my property? Additionally, there's many concerns about this taking away the small town feel that Sigma Mountain has. If you go to the website that I previously mentioned or to the petition, there are several comments and quotes from citizens in our town that say that the whole reason they're against this is because it's going to start diminishing the small town feel that we have on this mountain. We have a very good small town feel on this mountain, and making all the way through the town limits, commercial zones and office zones and who knows what else in 5 to 10 years, we're going to get rid of that small town feel and we won't have residents here anymore that like to live here. I don't know where I am as far as time goes, but I wanted to remind you to listen to what we're saying here today. Listen to the fact that the citizens are concerned about this. That this isn't just something that's going to be a concern for a few minutes and then it's going to go away as soon as the office complex is built. This is a concern that citizens are having because it's going to have lasting effects on our town. And the effects can change over the years and we don't know what those effects will be until they're wreaking havoc on our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, are you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I'll let them do the talking here.
You got to be proud of that kid, let me tell you.
Yes, sir.
hard acts to follow. Jackie Benkert, 707 Miles Road. And I'm basically
Jackie what?
reiterating.
I'm sorry.
Benkert, 707 Miles Road. Basically reiterating a lot of the points that have already been made tonight, but bear with me because I think they're all worth repeating. It has been suggested that it was preferable to have a proposed office building in lieu of any other sort of commercial building at that corner lot, the assumption being that it must be rezoned to commercial. It has also been suggested that if this is allowed, then that corner would be the new boundary for commercial zoning. If I understand this correctly. That the boundary would extend no further than that. However, as I understand it, a commercial developer has purchased the property right next to this one at the corner of Miles and Taft. Once this rezoning is approved at Taft and Elmwood, it's just a matter of time before the owners of those lots approach you with the rezoning proposition. And the area could fall like dominoes. There we go, we have dominoes. With the property values in the neighborhoods declining along with it. Well, what guarantees are you offering that the corner of Taft and Elmwood will be the absolute end of commercial rezoning along Taft Highway? What guarantees are you offering to the residents on Miles Road that we won't have to come before you in a few months begging you not to rezone a part of our neighborhood from residential to commercial? What promises will you give that the office space at Elmwood and Taft will be the absolute end of the Signal Mountain Commercial District? Also, while the results are mixed and I couldn't find anything that directly correlates with our situation, which is expanding commercial properties in a small bedroom community like ours, most studies show that some home properties near new commercial properties decline in value. In some parts of the country, there are legislative mandates that the district set aside mitigation funds to compensate property owners from the potential negative side effects of such commercialization of adjacent or neighboring properties. Is the town of Signal Mountain prepared to set up such funds for those of us who might face this loss in property values? The argument has been made that since the current home on that property is in need of repair and cannot be sold as is, or that no buyers could be found for the home, that the property could become a blight on that neighborhood, and it would therefore be better to turn it into a commercial property that could create some revenue for the town. Are there guarantees that there is a market for more office space in the town of Signal Mountain, and that those spaces will be occupied? Or is there a risk that those office spaces would become vacant, as several others in the town limits already have? And would it be better or worse for the residents on Elmwood to have a vacant house or a vacant commercial property at the end of their street? And finally, families in this area have lived in their homes for years with the understanding that the commercial district ended at Elmwood and Taft. The rezoning would affect them directly. My family moved into our home on Miles Road nearly 18 years ago when our older daughter was just 4 months old. When we bought this property, we had a lovely wooded area behind us. We would get to look out sometimes and see deer and other beautiful wildlife and trees, those beautiful trees that we love so much on Signal. It's now a new residential area, and I get to look into other people's backyards. This is the only home our daughters have known and the only house we've ever owned. And it sickens me to think of what sort of domino effect this rezoning could have on the value of our home and those of our neighbors. And so then ask yourselves, please, would you want properties in your neighborhood rezoned to commercial of any sort? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the issue?
I will.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be the only one that's small. So I don't expect to be quiet when I sit down. Anyway, I'm Tye Adkins. I live at 2316 Twin Ponds Trail, and that property belongs to my parents. The house was built by my mother's aunt back in 1950, and my parents bought the house 46 years ago. Dad's now 84. He's got Parkinson's. The house is old, you know, and they got to get out of it. So we discussed our options about what to do with the property. Mother's very concerned about what everybody feels about the property. She's concerned about the way the property looks and what everybody thinks. You know, they tried to sell it, and she wouldn't even let the real estate people put a sign in the yard. But anyway, it's come to the point to where something has to be done with the property. I've got to get them out of the house. They're bound to a wheelchair, and the house is not conducive to a wheelchair. So I went to talk to Bob. Bob Elliott's a good friend of mine. He's a developer, very good developer, and I knew that if he decided that he could do something with the property,
he would put something on that property that he'd be proud of and my parents would be proud of. My mother lived on this mountain for 82 years, her whole life. Her parents lived on this mountain their whole life. I'm 61, I've lived up here my whole life. We don't want to drive by something we'd be embarrassed about putting on that piece of property. That's the reason I got Bob. And y'all experienced Bob through some of these meetings and through some of the workshops. He's very easy to work with. And he's concerned about what he's going to build up here too. And he's going to put his signature on too. So we felt like this was good option for this property and for Signal Mountain. And I know there's a lot of people that are against it. We knew there would be a lot of people that would be against it. But we decided that we would bring it before the town council and see if we could get this approved. It's not commercial. I hear commercial. It's not. It's office development. And so anyway, we appreciate y'all's
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you tried to market the property as a residential?
We have. And it just, nobody wants it residential. No one's going to say it. Just like you mentioned a couple of meetings ago. When's the last time you seen a house built on Taft Highway?
But I have heard comments. I wonder to what extent, how actively you have tried to market and sell that product as a residence rather than turn it over to it.
They tried to sell it several times.
And the results have been?
Just very little. Very little interest in it in residential. The same developer came to us that bought the property on Miles Road, and but he just wouldn't offer any money for it at all. As a matter of fact, his plan was to build a road right down the middle of it and put houses on either side of it. Well, we sure don't have that. And then he talked about putting storage facilities on it. So we just weren't interested in that at all.
So someone tried to buy the property and they were going to develop it residentially, is that correct? Do I understand?
That's what he told me he wanted to do.
Okay.
Just come off of Howard and put a road right up the middle of that property and put houses on the side of the little road. Put big many houses up through there.
And that is the developer that has purchased the adjacent property on
Yes, sir.
There's still a sewer moratorium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, that.
So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome class.
Okay. I can't let Adam and Carson have all the glory. I'm Amy Boch, 609 Albert Road. In marketing our house, we never marketed it at $900,000 for a residential property. I'm just saying. We did market it for $350,000 and we brought it down. Our property is almost comparable to the two houses there. They're both brick houses. They're both built about the same time, I would say. But $900,000 for residential property on the highway? Just a question, is that really marketing residentially? There was no sign allowed on the property, so you're just still relying on the website for marketing. That's
And you're saying the asking price was what?
$900,000. Thank you.
Greisinger, 40 Carriage Hill. Just for some information, the 4 lots that everyone keeps talking about on Taft and then around the Miles are owned by Mr. Morrison. I think his first name is James. He owns the storage facility at Walden Commons. I don't know if he also owns Walden Commons, but the storage facility behind that is his. And I think he put in the storage facility on down Taft Highway a ways back through Walden. I'm not sure if that's, but I think that's
next to the church down there?
Mm-hmm. That's Mr. Morrison. So he is, has bought those 4 lots that
The first one is next to this. There are 4 vacant lots that are go down Hampton around miles. You can find them on the Hampton County GIS. He just purchased those in, I think, 2016, if I remember correctly. So what he planned to do with them, I don't know.
The lady who, I think, you spoke, correct? I hate to point, but I don't remember whose name.
Andy. Andy Bob.
No, I know Andy. In the purple top. I think that's you. I think that was you. Where do you live?
707 miles.
Where is that?
That's just one house on James.
Oh, Chancellor.
Yeah, she's on miles. Oh, that's fine. Oh, James is up here.
So at the corner of James and Howard. Okay, James.
James and Miles.
James and Mile, okay, yeah, all right, thank you.
My name is Wendy Morgan, 1143 James Boulevard. I'm just someone who loves Signal Mountain. I've been here 6 years, and you've heard me speak before. After I moved here, I just saw some things that came before the town that really concerned me. I love history. I love the nature of this place. My husband proposed to me here on the mountain. We both live in 2 different cities, and I just think it's a wonderful place, and that's why we chose to move here. I have also been made a habit now to start attending planning commission meetings and town council meetings. And when I attended the planning commission meeting where this came up, it had already been recommended by the Jennifer Williams and their group, and it passed 4 in favor, 1 opposed at the planning commission meeting. After that happened so quickly, also the citizens were not given a time for input at that meeting. Only when the land use plan was discussed, we were given time to talk about the land use plan, but those of us who were concerned about the Albert Road situation started speaking about that, and the developer had already left. So after that, I called the developer because I was concerned this was going to happen. And I wanted to ask him, I had also recently learned that our county is one of 2 counties in the state of Tennessee that can apply conditions on a rezone. And that also happened in the Planning Commission meeting where there were some additional conditions placed on this rezone. So I wanted to ask the developer, would he be willing to consider input from the citizens, and would he talk to us? And I know that I've heard you all say that we can't always rely on what passes before you is what the output will be and the end result will be at the time it goes to the DRC, and I'll speak to that in a minute. But I was concerned that maybe we should get these conditions in place with him ahead of the rezone. And he said that's not unusual for him. He has met with other citizens at other towns where it's actually a requirement for the town to give input, the citizens to give input before it can pass as a rezone. And so he said, sure, please get whoever you want to come. So I gathered all the people I had seen at these meetings that were opposed to it. I gathered some people from our tree board and the president of our Mount Stewards, and I tried to, and also, as I said, the neighbors who were opposed to it, and just brought us together at the library, and it was also advertised on some of the neighbors' personal Facebook pages, and we also said we would invite whoever we knew that might be opposed to this and just talk to him. So he was very gracious to sit down and talk to us. We met beforehand and gave him a PowerPoint document with 35 items that we thought were important to this. If this were going to happen, and he knows I'm being fair in how I say this, we said up front, if this is going to happen, we want the very, very best, highest standard we can get out of this. But none of us were comfortable in that room with this, but we wanted to have a conversation, and we did. And so he agreed to 31 out of the 35 items. Those 4 items that we didn't agree on, they were very important items. And you all know those items, what those items were. But I wanted to commend Bob Elliot and his company. I've looked at his website. I have a very high regard for what he's currently doing, and for him as a person because of how honest and upfront he was with us at that meeting and didn't oversell himself, but just was very factual about what he could and could not do. And I appreciate that, because I think this is good practice for a town to do that. But in part, what concerns me as a citizen in this town, and this is what this gentleman brought up, is we do not have architectural design standards. And this has come up, Mr. G, I know you brought this up and you said that somebody in the DRC might be working on this. But currently our town's process is to pass through an entire zoning process before it goes to the design review committee. And if I'm wrong on anything, stop me at any point. At no time during the process do town residents see a final design. Even when the town holds a special public hearing with the developer, as was the case with Keys Corporation a few months ago, the citizens are only given the opportunity to look at a concept that we all know can change during the DRC process. And as valuable as the DRC is, which I appreciate very much that we have that, the guidelines that I use are made up of many shoulds. And that's defined as the things that we hope they will do, that we prefer the developer to do, but they're not shalls, they're not things that we can make the developer do. There are a whole lot, we would prefer you to do this, but no clear, direct standard across the board that we can hold the developer to. Even Mr. Elliot, in all of his honesty, said when he applied for a permit, said he was surprised that Signal Mountain did not have architectural design standards and that we would be so loose with developers in allowing them to be so open with their concept and what their design. And I too have visited, all of you have visited towns where you're struck by the cohesiveness of the design of the town and how it feels, and you know those towns have architectural design standards. You have no doubt when you go into a town and see one like that, you know what that's coming from. That's not coming from the developer. That's coming from the town being proactive. And I'd like to encourage this wonderful town and you guys to get to looking at that. It's coming. Commercial development is coming. And we need to be so deliberate in what we do up here. As I've told other people, we're building on an island. We have a very small limited space for commercial development, and we need to be so careful and deliberate in what we're doing up here. So I wanted to explain that meeting in case there was any confusion as to why I did that. But the town's lack of architectural designs is very concerning, and I think that we need to consider that. My concerns about this specific location at Albert, my questions are simple for you, and I'm asking them as rhetorical, but I do expect some point that you to talk about these. I need to know what the vision you have for Albert to the town limits. I need to know what that vision is. As Mary asked, what studies has the town done to show that we have a need for more office space, especially in light of the 10,000 square foot office building that's coming in Walden? If your honest answer is no, there's not been any kind of study, that's fair, and I appreciate that. But our response is going off a hunch or a gut feeling that Signal Mountain could use more office space is just not good enough up here. It cannot be good enough. A town as distinct as Signal Mountain has to be guarded against growth for growth's sake. It has to be calculated, deliberate, and development of this size needs a clear, we need to meet a clear need in our community. It needs to be precise. And as the concern is about us enjoying a little part of Brainerd Road up here, a part of Brainerd Road is a lot of vacant space, and that's what we're trying to guard against. And so I think all these points are valid. I have nothing against Mr. Elliot and new development, and I sure hope we can find an existing property that they can turn into a gym. But I really, really want you to explain this to us so that we can embrace it.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anybody else like to address council?
No question. Well, I have an opportunity to speak at the agenda is regarding you to speak in the public hearing.
You can allow either.
We'll let you speak when the item comes up. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am, Ms. Varner.
Petition.
Thank you.
Hi, Rosemary Varner, 6
07 Albert Road. I'm the infamous owner that lives 8 feet away from the back property line. That this is, that wants the rezoning. I back up to 3 different owners. My property does on the back. One of them being the Morrison 4-lot group at Miles and Taft, and 2 others separate homes. And the Bochs are on my other side. And actually, I remember for decades seeing Adam and his mother planting trees and digging trenches all these years. And of course with the Adkins, I hate the thoughts of them even leaving because they've been wonderful neighbors too. The whole family's nice. But I am against this. I think it's a very large building with parking on a small lot. And I couldn't understand what Mr. Atkins was saying and what you asked Mr. G about, selling the property. One thing I do know, and I wanted to say with everybody I've talked to, this lot, and this shows you how important the environment is, the landscaping, and the building. This lot is held in really deep affection for everyone. The house, the land, the landscaping, and the trees. And it just shows you how important it is with prominent buildings that you see practically every day, maybe once more, more than once a day, how important that is. And Mr. G, I wanted to ask you, when we were talking, that's another thing, I've talked with all the council members, and I really appreciate your time and attention. And also Mr. Elliot working with us, I appreciate that. You mentioned plans the developer, Morrison, had, you didn't say the name, but for the lots at Miles and Taft, and it would fit well with this development. What does he have planned?
Oh, I don't have any idea. I really don't. You asked, we were talking about whether or not the proposal is a natural, as I believe, a natural extension of what is a commercial district and what I believe to be a very tasteful and productive way. And the argument against that is the domino effect that I've heard, that it's going to go down to the 4 lots on Miles and Taft. And it may. I guess that's what I would say, that I don't see, my opinion, for what it's worth, is that I don't see residential development on those lots. I don't see people building houses on that property, and those property owners have a right to sell that property. And that's one of the issues we had to deal with when Bob came to the Planning Commission, is that the other side of the story is the Atkins story, and they have a right to sell the property. And so it's adjacent to a commercial area. It's a logical assumption, although it's not necessarily accurate, that it could be rezoned if the request were approved. So, yeah, it just seems like a logical place for an extension of a commercial building to me. That's where I came out. And if it goes to Miles Road, and it meets the requirements of the town, if it meets the standards set by the town, then I wouldn't be opposed to that either.
Well, okay. One thing I do agree with, I think practically everything everybody said tonight, and especially design requirements. We definitely need more about landscaping and everything. But one thing, but we have all along Taft, we have some large and small homes that are all really nice. And actually, when you think about it, from Albert on, it's on out to the town limits at James and Taft, it's residential. And there's some nice condos, 2 different sets of development condos. And then across the road with Walden, it's all residential and agricultural. You know, to even past McCoy, you know, out to the old Brown Brothers, you know, development. But all of this, it reminds me, I was watching a rerun of Downton Abbey, and this particular program, I thought was an analogy for what's happening here. And it was when I think the Baroness, the elder one, was discussing with the designated heir about his decision. He had been seriously injured. He was getting better, and I think he had serious doubts about his fiance. I mean, as far as did he love her enough, but that she was willing to be with him when he was severely injured. And the Baroness said, well, I appreciate your loyalty here, but she said, people of our class don't divorce. She said, and marriage can be a very long time, 40 to 50 years or more. And she said, I really think you should think about this to see if you're making the right decision, because it's going to be with you for a very long time. And I think that's true with all of this. And she said, also, we will not fall out about this. And I agree with that too. I don't want any of us to fall out about this. And I hope we won't. But we will be looking at anything we do here for a very long time. And I think we have to be extremely careful about it. And I see they still being residential, maybe more than one house. Maybe, you know, townhouses or condos. And, you know, it always seems like there's a need for housing.
Rosemary, one conversation we had after the planning commission that I had with Rosemary, and if I lived next door to this, I'd be against it too. I mean, I think almost anybody would, so that's natural. But I appreciated that when I asked her, what if this was a medium density residential, do you think you still would be opposed to it? And she thought about it for a moment and said, probably not. And that's a consideration. That's the kind of thing that will come out of the charrettes, maybe. Because I agree. I mean, change happens. But anyway, I think that's a good consideration. I appreciate your saying that tonight, too.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else, or?
Ann Hagood, 506 James Boulevard. I hadn't really planned to speak tonight, but a couple of things have prompted me to do that. One of them is that I would like to thank Mr. Elliot for the way he has handled this entire matter, for his willingness to hear the concerns of the citizens, for his willingness to incur extra expense to try to meet the concerns that they had, for his desire to align whatever he did with community standards. I especially thank him for his integrity and for his graciousness. Thank you. And I also hope that if this does not pass, that Mr. Elliott will consider returning to do some other development in our town by the same standards and with the same integrity. I would also like to raise the possibility that perhaps this could be, I think procedurally it can't be simply deferred, but the idea of voting no on this and then going through the charrette process, see what the citizens are interested in having, and hopefully Mr. Elliott would come back with another proposal that more closely aligns with what the citizenry wants. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Done.
This is just going, down Monroe and I'll say Cherokee Lane, this is going to be a quick reiteration. My sole concern from the outset, apart from other people's their concern, is that you really, well, we're not Marion Road, we're not Ringo Road, but in a short amount of road we have, it's possible to, I don't want to use the word junk it up, but overcrowd it. Now, if you ever go down Ringo Road from Patel, Railroad from Patel, all the way to 58, you kind of want to use the word junk, you really do, especially Ringo Road. Now, that's unsightly. So I think, as Dave mentioned, we ought to have some kind, do we have any documentation to limit the amount of commercial building? And I know, Dick, what you said, we probably try to sell what we want to, but can we dictate, and I use that word strongly, what will go on a lot commercially? Now, if somebody's going to put some storage units, I think it'll be run out of town on rail. But do we have anything in place to decide what can be put on lots?
Yeah, you have zoning regulations. That's what zoning regulations do. And they regulate what can go and what can't go. And the request for this property is to go to office district.
Wow, that sounds pretty good.
In the step down, whoever was talking about the step down nature, it's one of the least intrusive commercial districts relative to residential. It's considered to be a step down from a highway commercial.
I understand that.
So that's why we feel like it makes sense and it's logical with typical zoning decisions.
In this case, I mean, that sounds pretty, but I'm just thinking of the overall limitation. In other words, somebody comes up and says, I want to put a filling station, gas station up. Say, okay, that sounds good. And then I want to put a big old building up with cash till payday. We got some different identities of different claims of it. And my question is, can we control that?
Yeah, the zoning regulations do stipulate in pretty good detail what can and can't be where in commercial districts, depending on the commercial district, the level of commercial activity.
Okay, well, well, let's say
now what we don't have, and someone has mentioned it, is we don't have the design standards that govern how buildings look and what kind of
that's what the architecture.
Yeah, and the design committee is working on that, but we're not there yet to deal with Bob. And I will tell you again, Bob has been more than cooperative in incorporating the comments from citizens and from council and from planning commission, so that it would be as compatible, I guess, as a proposal as possible with what he believes and what we believe the town should look on.
Well, I believe in that. Are we heading in any way for architecture's word to get on this?
Dick and I brought up, Dick started, I thought it was a good idea that we did come to more stringent architectural appearance, especially the facades. I think it would be neat. It's just my personal opinion. I'm not speaking as a mayor or councilman at this point, but what Chuck Pruitt's doing there to Pruitt's, I think that's extremely attractive. And if right now those strip malls up there, they're ugly. But if you could get those folks to come back in and resurface that and the stone, mountain stone, and the wood, and make it more attractive and have a consistent look that goes throughout that commercial district, I think that would really go a long way to making the town look better.
Especially that building's got the coffee cup on it. If we could just get mountain stone on it.
Now wait, somebody bought, we passed the beer license.
Yeah,
that's purple, yellow. Whatever happened with that? It's just happened. Don, you can sit down. Thank you, sir.
Still wants to process.
That's off topic. Sorry.
They've actually sold permits, so it is,
okay.
And they were there working last month.
Really? I haven't seen it. Anybody else like to address the council? Or now, please be aware that we will, if the vote does pass here, we will still have another public hearing. It is required to go through 2 positive votes. A lot of times that first vote is made so we can continue to have discussions on these sorts of things. It's really that final vote that is the more instrumental of the 2. Anybody else before we close this down?
I'll speak again.
I'm ready to go. To call the question.
All right. How quick?
Just 30 seconds.
Hurry up. Thank you, ma'am.
I don't doubt that. Susan Edmonson, 74 Albert. I take issue with the fact that the theory that this house cannot be sold residential. Taft Highway is filled with residential homes. I think the owners didn't want to sell this residential because they could get more money commercially. And that's all I wanted to say.
Understand. Thank you.
15 seconds.
One more. Let's go.
Well, it's just
It's 9 o'clock.
right along with what she said. Mary Hutson, 150 James Boulevard. A thought I've had is what's going to happen on the other end of Taft, which is called Reed Way. There's a home on the corner opposite the Atlantic Capital Bank. So it's conceivable that if this is rezoned, that they could come there on the other end and do the same. So I do think there's a serious precedent-setting issue here.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll close the public hearing, and I'm going to get back to the agenda. Too many notes here. Ordinance. Let me find it. We don't give it a number, correct, Carol?
Correct.
All right. Ordinance rezoning LDR to OD-1403 Taft Highway will have the first reading. Now, just to remind everybody, we had a first reading and a passage of this. We have to go back to another first reading because the developer took in a significant amount of public input and agreed to 25 out of 31 or so, as somebody mentioned before, stipulations with that property. That's due to those changes in those regulation stipulations we put on that project. We have to go back to another first reading.
Chris, I think it's important to say, maybe it's not in the right order, but these are now conditions. These are not wannabes and wishes. These conditions are binding once this ordinance goes past.
And we all learn something every day. I learned about 2 weeks ago when we started to go through this process that Hamilton County is one of only 2 counties in the state, and I think somebody mentioned it today, that allows us as a town to put these restrictions on this project and make the developers live by those restrictions. And that's just...
And this particular developer willingly, to his great credit, willingly included these things.
I just wanted to add that for, I thought it was an interesting fact. Does anybody know who the other county is? Williamson probably, that'd be my guess. An ordinance to rezone parcel 09HAB 01200 from low-density residential district to office district, subject to certain conditions. Let's read the whole thing.
It would be wise to maybe at least reference these conditions that are in here.
Okay, bear with me, it's long. Whereas Tennessee Code annotated TCA 13-7201 allows for the zoning of territory within a municipality, and whereas TCA 13-7-204 authorizes amendments to a zoning map, and whereas in accordance with TCA 13-7-203 subsection B, the Signal Mountain Municipal Planning Commission approved and recommended the zoning amendment herein described to the town council, and whereas in accordance with TCA 13-7-203 subsection A, a public hearing was held prior to final reading of this ordinance, and the town council agreed to rezone this parcel from low-density residential to office district, subject to certain conditions designed to ameliorate injuries created by the rezoning to surrounding property interests as set forth pursuant to TCA 13-7-101B. Now therefore be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Signal Mountain, Tennessee, that Section 1, the parcel designated as Hamilton County Tax Map 098JB01200, also known as 1403 Taft Highway, is hereby zoned official office district within the town and shall be designated as so zoned on the town zoning map. The legal description of the property can be found in Hamilton County Deed Book 1896, page 385. Section 2, rezoning of the aforementioned property shall be subject to the following conditions. 1, the development must be used as professional offices. 2, the development must be a single building, only 1 story in height, consistently finished on all 4 sides and having a pitched roof. 3, a 30-foot landscape buffer shall be required to all adjacent lots, either used or zoned as residential, except along the property line adjacent to parcel 098JB013, where a 35-foot buffer is required. No structures or parking or driveway access is permitted with any landscape buffer to the adjacent lots. 4, screening shall be provided within the landscape buffer along the property line adjacent to parcel 098JB013, subject to the approval of the building official. The nature of such screening shall be consistent with Section 808 of the zoning ordinance, except that deciduous, thank you. Native plants are allowed provided effective screening is accomplished. Any masonry screening within the landscape buffer must be covered with stone to match that on the building. Screening, regardless of nature, must be maintained in perpetuity. 5, the maximum allowed parking for the development shall be 4.5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of building, and there shall be 1 tree island for every 10 parking spaces. The parking lot shall consist of no more than 10% permeable surface, and the parking lot shall consist of no less than 10% permeable surface, and the developer must follow best management practices relative to oil separation and stormwater design. Almost there. 7, the parking area may not be used for outdoor sales, including the sale of vehicles, recreational vehicles, etc. Parking lot lighting shall be controlled so that light does not exceed 0-foot candles when measured at property lines shared with any adjacent lots, either used or zoned as residential, and 75% of the parking lot lights must be turned off between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. All dumpsters and mechanical units must be screened so they are not visible to passerby or from adjacent properties, and noise from mechanical units shall be controlled in accordance with the town's noise ordinance. The developer shall secure a tree survey for the property prior to any disturbance of any trees removed shall be replaced based on trunk diameter at a 1-to-1 ratio. Replacement trees must be native, deciduous, did I get that right again? Yes. Species. All landscape planting must be warranted and replaced if necessary for a 3-year period. There shall be a landscape berm at least 3 feet in height along the property line adjacent to Taft Highway. Associated landscaping on the berm shall not obscure visibility or otherwise hamper traffic on any roadway and shall comply with the site visibility requirements at all access points as required by Section 16-104 of the Town Code. Number 12, the developer shall seek approval to connect to the sanitary sewer system. If such connection is denied, the developer shall install a sewer connection stub to the property line nearest the existing sanitary sewer main. The town may require the development to connect to the sewer system once such connection is authorized. Property access shall be limited to Taft Highway, provided the full movement access from Taft is approved and permitted by TDOT. Failure to comply with any of these conditions shall result in the ordinance becoming null and void. Section 3, the ordinance shall become effective immediately from and after its final passage as provided by law, and all zoning maps for the town shall include such property as office district unless otherwise changed by the town council in accordance with Tennessee law. Thank you for bearing with that.
I move for approval.
I'll second. Discussion on the issue.
I'm pretty conflicted, as most people here are. Everybody here has gone to the breadbasket, and this looks very similar to what they're proposing, and we all have enjoyed an asset like that in our community, even though it's not in the town of Signal Mountain. You've got I don't know, was it built in the 40s or 50s? When was that house built? 1950. I mean, someone's gonna either purchase it if it was for sale and fix it up, or something like another potential asset to the town. Obviously, we've seen the transformation of Pruitt's, and it's now looking more like an asset rather than a strip mall. And so those are some positives. Also, Dan brought up a good point in the last meeting, that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the town. And everybody who's against this, are they also in favor of raising taxes? Because some of these commercial assets do help meet our obligations as a town, and I haven't heard any, when we annexed Fox Run and we annexed Windtree, we expanded our town in a great deal. And correspondingly, a land use plan also makes use for expanding some small part of the commercial district. And this would be a potentially logical area. I don't think it would be logical to expand it in the area that you suggested earlier, down by the bank that's now, I guess it's no longer a bank now, it's just a building, is that correct? Or is that bank? It's for sale. So we've got to think about it from a tax base. We have to think about it from an aesthetic issue. Would something like the breadbasket be more attractive than what's there now? Some of the other things that I wrote down, which were some of my concerns, was on the other side of the coin, since the land use is in a sort of a flux that we're discussing it, I'm a little reticent to want to vote on something now where the land use may dictate that one way or the other in the future discussions. Also, the road access from the highway, I know that have we made application to get that? I'm kind of have to ask. Where are we on the application for that?
Bob Elliot, 832 George Avenue. No application has been made to TDOT yet. It's premature with the rezoning still being I'd like to address some things too, but I'll wait my turn for you guys to finish your discussion.
Yeah, I'd like you to finish. I think you were good.
I'm pretty much tapering down. I'm concerned again about what was brought up about the stormwater runoff. I don't know if that requires a study. I'm just not knowledgeable. You're the stormwater. How would that affect those in that area if that was asphalt and that was going directly on a shed?
Well, that's got to be dealt with. And that's part of the design. The runoff has to be, these days, maybe not back in the day, but
so Hamilton County has
standards.
Hamilton County has standards in place that are much more stringent than were applied at the time most of the commercial development along Taft Highway was put in place. So I would be held to much higher standards. And the state of Tennessee as well as
the town also has stormwater regulations.
It deals with water quantity, as well as water quality.
So I assume that the water quality or the stormwater question would be much better off a modern building than it would be from a building that's been around for 20 or 30 years.
We could technically approve this, but then septic issues and/or other things might preclude it from actually happening. Is that correct?
If they're denied connection to the sanitary sewer system, then the only option they have is to put in a septic system, which I think you're prepared to do.
I mean, that's the only two options.
Yeah.
We strongly prefer to be able to connect to that.
But as I read it though, if you're denied initially, you have to do the stub up and connect as soon as you're allowed to.
We've agreed to, voluntarily prepare for the time at which the moratorium is lifted and there's the ability to tie into that. So that at that point, there would be minimal disturbance of the property, the road, et cetera.
And actually, we wouldn't govern that. The WWPA regulations would govern the connection of that bill. They would force them to connect to the system since they have access to it. I think it was right down the road.
It does, it runs down that.
So that'd be automatic.
Do we want to hear Bob address some of these issues and then go through questions more?
Sure.
You guys want to make comments before?
I think I've made most of my concerns because everybody in this room has to face the fact that, raising property taxes, if there isn't a corresponding something to buffer the fact that we lost $800,000 in the hall tax, that's, again, Dan brought up, and one reason why it probably made it here to this discussion is that's part of our fiduciary responsibility. We also have a responsibility to the citizens not to put in or recklessly expand, as Mr. Evans had suggested. So, again, it's not an easy decision. I think that if I read what I've seen, that it would be reasonable to think that at some point in the discussion with land use, that would be a reasonable area to consider putting some form of, in this case, a office as opposed to pure commercial, where we don't have something else going up there that we wouldn't be approved or be proud of. Go ahead.
Yeah, so on the fiduciary responsibility thing, I agree. That's one of the things that we have to do, but this isn't an either or. And one of the things that we have the ability to do is to help shape how development takes place in the town. And the Planning Commission has one role in that, but then the Town Council has another. And we can somewhat corral that just a bit, in that if this council says, not this, but maybe something else, there are other ways to address the fiduciary responsibility, for instance, with medium density or high density residential, or none. I mean, the option is always, just to say no as well. So I feel like our decisions should be, and in particular, the input that we get from the charrettes should be what drives the developer like this, a good developer, the kind that we want, based on what he sees is going to be easy because we've decided it, rather than us, it's a tail wagging the dog kind of thing, where we're just responding to what a developer comes to us and suggests. And I fear that we're in that position just a little bit right now. Does that make sense?
I have to agree.
I think we're sort of creating some new territory because we're not, because of its willingness to be cooperative and involved, and that we're not necessarily the tail wagging the dog or the other way around. We're sort of meeting in the middle in reasonable space, I think. And I think as a result, we've got a very reasonable and worthy proposal to do.
A question to always ask in a situation like this is there anything that you could hear, and I don't know how anyone's going to vote, I'm a little close myself, is there anything that you could hear in a charrettes that would change your opinion from right now, based on citizen input? I mean, I'm not asking you to answer that out loud, but I think that's a good thing to ask yourself, because that's information we don't have yet.
If the charrettes produced a notion that the commercial district as it is defined in most people's, it seems to be defined by Albert Road, is the limit, and wherever the other end is, it's a fixed place. I think that's a dangerous conclusion. I think that the idea that all commercial development has got to reside within this fixed spot is not realistic. And I think that's what we're being asked to look at. We're looking at a reasonable expansion of what is our defined or designated, maybe is a better word, commercial district. Not within that designation, but just slightly without. And the fear that's being suggested is it's the domino effect and we're going to turn into Russell Holt. I don't believe that.
I have to agree with you as well. I don't think that will happen either. It's possible, but I don't think that would happen. However, I voted for this in the Planning Commission, and I'm kind of leaning the opposite direction now as a council member as we look at this. I just want to say why, and this is the only chance we get to discuss it again. So
why are we not allowed to make this comment?
Well, I want to ask you a question though. Because you and I both voted for this, and again, this is the only time we get to discuss this as publicly here. The step down concept seems,
If you want to sit.
okay. The step down concept seems to already exist in that we've got already across the street from that, we've done it. It's already stepped down with an office. And so now we're into the residential area on that side. And I'm just one person, but it makes sense to me that that would continue to be residential, except it creates the opportunity for the property values for people to go up if it's residential and like the box, I think, your house is rented now. If they were next to medium density residential and our town said this is a dream, that's all I'm tossing out here, and we had more walkable traffic, which is what we've talked about in our bike ped survey, to try to get more people living in that area. There's then incentive for the businesses that are there to also improve because they've got more traffic as well. People actually walking to businesses and coffee shops and restaurants and things like that. So it's just, I'm saying from a fiduciary responsibility standpoint, there's another way of looking at it that could be a reality as well. Because we don't know what the future holds, but I just...
Again, in some manner, just like the New Pruitt's edition has been a carrot for developers to bring attractive things like these small little projects, that is also, it forces the other developers to improve their properties because it's sort of a competition, and that's what we are, is basically, in some respects, one person has a green grass and you go out and get another lawn care service so that you can look like your neighbors. There is a competition in some, especially in some of the areas that we have that are set aside with many of the close densities. Everybody has covenants in their own areas and they meet the requirements and that their standards. This is, by looking at it, it's an attractive structure. Again, my concern is that we don't find out about things like road access until actually we approve it, and then you get your permit, or it's like we have to approve it before you can get your permit. Is that correct? To understand whether you have road access through the highway or not?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And that's concerning, that it may be that Albert Road gets all the traffic, and because we can't access it through the highway, and that's a little concerning to me. The runoff would be another issue, but that would be a study. Did you say you had done a study, or maybe, Mayor, it's time for let him speak, and then that way I'm not asking these questions.
We all good with that?
If I can just address one, we have contacted TDOT and basically laid out the scenario for them that if that center turn lane was extended, access to Taft, and they said based on the information we provided them, it would meet their criteria and it was likely that it would be approved. That's all they could tell us, and that's all really we could ask for, but based on the fact that a center turn lane would be installed, it is likely that they could get access off that.
To this document then, does that prevent them from doing an Albert entrance?
Well, one of the things that he needs to address is it appears that we will need to do a limited access off of Albert. I've also talked to Chief Mitchell. I'll let him address that, but it will be very limited if it's allowed off that.
Is everybody okay if we get, Bob, go ahead. What do you got? Is it okay if we go?
Main entrance will be off of that.
The main entrance will be off, the limited access would be off the Albert.
All right, I'm interested to hear about that. I'm assuming you'll touch on that?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
It's all yours.
Members of the council, thank you for having me, and I want to thank, the public that's here speaking tonight. Your public is very well educated in terms of what their identity is as a community and the things that are important in a community. I've heard with a bunch of different conversations that didn't have anything to do with our rezoning, and then I've heard it as the public spoke about our rezoning. So you've got a very well-educated group. The issues with this is that, the very first thing I think I said when I came into these discussions with all of you and with anyone that I've met with from the community is that, I spent a good part of my adult life as a resident on the mountain and love the community, and I'm attracted to the community for what it offers from a way of life standpoint. I want to become the example that you point to when someone else comes to you and says, I'd like to rezone my property, or I'd like to build a new facility on something that's already got the appropriate zoning designation. That you go, well, if you can meet the standards that this development, the one I'm proposing, met, then we will welcome you in our community. And I hope I've shown through the meetings and through the discussions that that's not lip service. I mean what I say. I'm volunteered myself into 13 different zoning conditions that tie me to my word, tie that property to those promises. They are not, give me a chance, I'm a great guy, you'll see one day, I'll show you that. I'm showing you now. I'm telling you now. I'm going to do what I'm going to say. I'm going to say what I'm going to do. What we propose, has dealt with some of the primary things that anyone around this property should be concerned with, that I would be concerned with, and things such as noise pollution, sight, visual pollution, safe access, good roads, proper buffer zones. All the zoning conditions that we've talked about are things that are good practice, quite honestly, for commercial development where it abuts residential property. Beyond all those things, I've limited not just what the property will become physically, but also I've limited the uses. The office district zoning designation is a fairly broad definition that includes many things, including residential. I've agreed to limit myself to one little small part of that zoning designation, which is professional office space. And your professional office space designation does not allow retail. It does not allow some of the things that were hypothesized a few minutes ago. It is very strict. It's professional office space, and that's what we hope to provide to you. Your community, I've said it once before, your community has continued to grow because it's an attractive place to live and a great quality of life. And what I hope to bring is a quality project that takes into consideration all the factors with respect to looking out for the neighborhood around me, trying to build a quality project that your town not just be proud of, but point to as the example. And anyway, so the one thing that was just discussed with respect to the limited access on Albert Road is our civil engineers and architects have laid this particular site out as we came away from the last work session when we discussed this project, where I said I would agree to Taft Highway as the primary access. That's not changed. The thing the civil engineer figured out is that the dumpster service for the project did not, the driveways are so small based on the buffers and the driveways that we're trying to provide here, that they can't get in and out and pick the garbage up and make the turn. So what we proposed was a small gate and a small driveway that would have access only for the garbage to pick up and would come off tap, and that would be the only in and out allowed at the limited access. So that's the only variation. And that came from, the architect and the engineers.
The recommend was come off Albert, misspoke.
What did I say?
You said tap.
You said come off tap.
Theoretically, though, Bob, if the building was smaller, there might be a different solution to that was still on tap.
That is true, and I've heard the comment about size is 12,000 feet, and I guess every idea has a business model behind it. I have a business model behind mine, and I understand if we're not in alignment. I hope that we are. I hope that you see that I've tried to show you guys that what I want to do for you is sincere, and that I will stand behind my word. But there is that one change that we need to be able to take the trash.
I apologize, I interrupted you, so if you want to keep going.
No.
That's it.
I just need to get some of that off my chest, fans. It's been a great process, and some really nice people, and you guys have a tough job every day.
And again, we appreciate your willingness to work. Very much appreciate your handling
I
this.
hope that you don't just believe me, but because I'm willing to put it on paper that we're going to do a quality job should you vote for it. So anyways, thanks for that. And I'll be here if you have any questions as you continue your discussion.
Thank you.
Yes. If I might add to that, and speaking with Chief Mitchell, this limited access on Albert, if fire apparatus could have the ability to use that, it would greatly improve their ability to maneuver.
It's going to have limited, but you're going to have to make it wide enough that the fire trucks can make it.
Sure.
If it goes forward.
You've got it listed as HD concrete because your garbage truck's coming in there and everything, so I don't think there'll be any issue.
No, but I would assume that the public services can have access. The restriction that I'm willing to agree to is that it's not to be used for, the occupants of the building or their customers or whatever the case may be. It is strictly for public services.
Thank you, sir.
Well, how does that solve that problem? How do you stop people from using?
It's got a gate.
It's got a gate. Sorry, I missed that. Okay.
That's drawing.
That's a simple.
There's a gate that's something.
More discussion on the issue? Yes, sir.
If not, I would, building on that, there would need to be a change to item 13, Bill can weigh in, but if that is to be allowed, 13 might change to except as required for emergency and large service vehicles. Property access shall be limited.
So, if we're going to do first reading tonight, does that have to be in the motion? Yes. Motion to amend. Does anybody want to?
Well, it's my motion on the floor, right? So,
what's the motion on the floor? Is there one?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, first and second.
Okay.
It's me, so I will.
I wanted to say one more thing.
Okay.
Obviously, we have a high school. I voted for it. I have a mile-long traffic in front of me every day. I can't get back if I leave my house for about 30 minutes until it gets out. However, after 10 years, I've gotten used to it. It's not as big a problem. I work around it. I know it's a big asset to our community. And again, I have no idea about how the land use plan is going to be eventually, through public hearings, sorted out, but those would be logical areas to consider. And but at the same time, I ask everyone to think about, if they were in our positions, how do we handle the fact that we did annex a large part of this mountain that we are now responsible for. And those kinds of services, obviously a lot of us go off the mountain for a lot of our services, but at the same time, we're a professional community, and we do expect some level of availability of conveniences. And in the event that I do vote for it tonight, it doesn't mean I would vote again on the second reading, simply because I'd like to hear more input for the community. So in an effort to move it forward, just to get more feedback for a second hearing, to hear things we may not have heard this night, then that would be the explanation for my vote in a positive manner for this.
Okay, any more discussion on the issue?
I'd like to offer an amendment to my motion, and that includes language on
13.
Yeah, item 13. Except as authorized for large service vehicles and emergency vehicles. Where does that go at the beginning? That goes at the beginning. Then it says property access shall be limited to Taft Highway, provided that full movement access from Taft is approved and permitted by TDOT. Limited access shall be gated limited access other than on Taft Highway shall be gated. Carol, did you get that?
I didn't get that very last piece.
It says limited access other than on Taft Highway shall be gated.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll second it, if it needs a second. All right, the motion's been amended. We've had discussion on the first motion. The amended motion has been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the second motion? For the second, or which is now the first motion, correct? I know.
Let's go down that rabbit hole.
You need to vote on the amendment first, it needs to be approved, and then after the amendments, you have to vote on the ordinance as.
Any more discussion on just the amendment to
The original.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? 4-0 on that. Now we're back to the original motion, which has been replaced and now has that amended language in it, which we've discussed. Is there any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Okay. 3-1. Now, as far as going forward, we will then have another public hearing at this meeting next month. We will not have it at the agenda meeting. So everybody knows. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for your input. This is the way the process is supposed to work. Thank you. We'll let the room clear real quick, and we've only got 5 more items to hit. It's 20 to 10. All right, this is the first reading of ordinance amending zoning ordinance SCD and CCD into HCD First reading. That's a lot of acronyms.
Jennifer's going to make sense of all that.
Do I need to, we're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, here we go. Let's get back in session and try to wrap this marathon, record-breaking meeting to a conclusion. Thank you all for your patience and your input. I appreciate it. This is the way the system's supposed to work. Next is amending zoning ordinance SCD and CCD and HCD, first reading. Do I have to read the whole thing? Thank you. Just a caption, thank you. Has no ordinance number until the second and final reading, and it passes. An ordinance to amend the Signal Mountain zoning ordinance and official zoning map through the deletion of the specialty commercial district and the incorporation of the planned commerce center district into the highways commercial district. Who will be explaining this masterful piece of work?
Well, I think Jennifer and I both know something about it.
Excellent. Here we go. Jennifer, you've hung around for a good 3 hours or so enlighten us.
Okay, this ordinance is Jennifer Williams going to give me. This ordinance relates to the different commercial districts that the town currently has on the books. There are, I think, 6 right now, including a plan unit development. And at the Planning Commission, we've discussed reducing that number of districts to provide some clarity and then eliminate some conflict within the different districts where the ordinance actually contradicted itself. The first item there on the ordinance is the deletion of the specialty commercial district, which is extremely similar to another district, the community commercial district, and there are currently 0 lots zoned specialty commercial districts. So the deletion of this district does not impact any existing property.
What is that?
The district?
No, specialty.
The idea for the specialty commercial and the community commercial are some potential small-scale commercial operations that could exist within a more residential environment.
Thank you.
And the second item, the second thing this ordinance does is take the planned commerce center district and incorporate it into the highway commercial district. So the planned commerce center district is sort of designed for shopping centers, but there's only one area currently zoned in that manner. And it contradicts with the highway commercial district in a lot of ways. So this ordinance puts them together in a way that doesn't negatively impact any existing property or change what any existing property is allowed to do.
Is one more restrictive than the other?
Yes and no. They have similar yet different lists of allowed uses. They're both pretty broad commercial districts. But in the new district, all the things that were allowed are...
If I might add, for a big city, that kind of distinction might be important. But for a small town like ours, it's really overkill.
Thank you.
Yeah, just briefly on here, at this point in time, you only have 10 zoning districts in the town as opposed to 12 beforehand. And the requirement for a planned commerce center district, I would like to say that that's similar to a planned unit development for commercial. So you basically would have a big box shop developing in a particular area and have a planned district around it. So that's a little different than what we have now. And I think we currently have a community commercial district here within the town. That is what was the old Signal Mountain Middle School, because there were more developments that were going on in that area for at least a portion of their uses than just as a gym. So that was the usage of that, but it had conditions applied to that zoning to limit what could be developed in there. And your conditional zoning tool allows you to limit things within an area, even within these zones. And that's all.
What's the Alexian zoning?
I think it is a variety of zones at this point. Jennifer may know better than I.
Jennifer, can you
there's a bunch of different designations.
Yeah, I think it's high-density residential.
Okay, even though there's a business going on in that.
Correct, yeah.
There's a portion, because we've actually dealt with the aspect of should they or should they not have a beer license. So they actually have a beer license on a portion of the area, and I think there's a portion that may be designated as commercial development.
I could use beer license. Okay, everybody okay with that? This is an ordinance. We get more than one reading, and we'll have a public hearing as well.
I guess I'm still trying to understand the basics of this. Does it expand its use to include a big box? Is that what you were saying?
No. In fact, what she is doing here is just saying that, at least in the highway commercial zone, I believe, the planned commerce centers can be developed, but they would have to be at least 5 acres in total size, and they have at least 400 feet of frontage. So it's a limited area in your town that could occur.
But it's still zoned as a community.
Or it would be zoned there as a highway commercial zone. I don't believe it would be allowed in a community commercial district. No.
We are not expanding the highway commercial district in any way through this.
No. Well,
I want to avoid the Rossville Boulevard.
Right.
the only change that would take place is that lots that are currently zoned Planned Commerce Center District would now be zoned Highway Commercial District, which is essentially Pruitt's. It's the only lot that left.
Are we trying to bring Pruitt's in under some kind of additional protection?
No, this was mainly about we had too much overlap in too many different kinds of districts. We just consolidated and made it fit what exists.
You guys both happy with it?
Yeah.
I mean, you're the guys who studied it.
Yeah, it really just, it didn't change anything. It just made it fit what actually exists.
You happy with it, Jennifer?
Yeah.
We have very similar businesses.
So you're saying we got a hodgepodge and we're just consolidating?
Yeah. We have one business across the road that was pretty much the same as this one, and they were in two different kinds of districts.
Okay.
And this one cleaned it up.
And one last thing, I guess, since we're dealing with zoning ordinances have to go in front of your planning commission first. Planning commission makes a recommendation to you whether to approve or not to approve. And Jennifer, I assume that this was an approval, is that correct?
Yes, it was recommended for.
And if there is ever a denial, then it requires additional action by the town council under those circumstances to do something, and it requires a majority of the total membership of the council to approve something if there's ever a denial. In this case, both of the instances you've had in front of you this evening were approvals by the planning commission.
Okay. And I'm sure that since this is a zoning issue, we'll hear all about it, people are happy about it.
You will, and you also will have a public meeting on this before your next meeting.
So we get 2 public meetings and a public comment session for the next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you.
Are we still in a discussion on this? May I ask a question?
Sure.
Simple question.
Sure.
What if there had been a tie on that last vote?
The tie and the last
There's
vote.
no action.
There would have been no action. But wait a minute, it would not have approved to go on to the next reading if there was a tie.
It would not have been, a tie is the same as a fail.
Yes. Because there would be no action taken by the body.
Second place is first loser. We ready?
Yes.
We ready to vote on this?
No.
No, you don't have to make a motion.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll offer a motion to approve.
A second.
we have a first and second. Further discussion? All those in favor to approve the first reading? Aye. 4-0. Oh, hey, here's a non-controversial topic. Presentation of the initial report evaluation of the water system proposals. And thanks for everybody's patience.
Really, I don't know why.
It's not mine.
Hey, order, please. Please.
If I might, as a lead into this, this is just as it's listed on the agenda, presentation regarding the initial report from the evaluation committee. Of course, the pleasure of the council dictates how it proceeds, but it was not intended to initiate or be really a discussion scenario. We've had a group of people who spent a considerable amount of time not only evaluating the proposals, but compiling the report. And I thought it appropriate as an initiation of the coming process that this take place so that report can be presented to council You have that in written form, and you will all have the actual proposal documents as well. So I've asked Chief Mitchell and Sam to make this presentation relative to their report, and
You're asking us not to ask questions.
well, I'm just making it clear what the intent is.
We're gonna have a couple public meetings, and we are not asking at this point, and this committee is not at this point giving any recommendations.
This committee is not charged.
Purely informational. Thank you. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Thank you. As you know, as I've stated before, our mission tonight is just to kind of update you. You've all received a report on where we're at to this point, the process to you. Overview of the process. May 8th, Council voted to move ahead with the RFP process. So that was May 8th, 2017. December 11th in 2017, Council gave their approval to go ahead and publish the RFP. 15th, the request for proposal was submitted, so that's when it went out. January 4th, there was a mandatory site meeting. Those wishing to provide proposals to the town on this were required to be here for a meeting. February 14th, proposals were due back to the town manager, which they were. And February 26th to the 27th, there was an evaluation committee met to review the proposals based on the contents and how they met the RFP. The evaluation committee, again, met on February 26th and 27th. Finance Director Carol White, Public Works Director Loretta Hopper, Special Projects Manager Sam Goon, myself, former Mayor Bill Lusk, and Tommy Krangle, who lives down on Sunset area as a representative of water system users that didn't live in the town, but was a user of our water utility, was members of that committee. Town manager picked the committee, and again, we were instructed, our job wasn't to make a recommendation. Our job was to evaluate the proposals based on the facts in the proposals as they compared to the RFP. Two proposers, Tennessee American Water, they made a proposal for the acquisition of the town's water system. Walden Ridge Utility District made proposals for the acquisition of the town's water system, as well as the operation and maintenance of the town water system. So I'll let Sam take over on the proposal, the acquisition side.
So as far as the acquisitions, the proposal from Tennessee American, they submitted a proposal to purchase the town's water system for $3.4 million. This included all of the associated water department property, which includes the site right up here with the two water tanks, the other one at the end near the end of Taft and James, as well as the site at the foot of the mountain where our pump station is and a couple of more water tanks. What it did not include was the town's water shop here, and the reasoning for that, you'll see that also, this same paragraph repeated in Walden's Ridge, but the reason that wasn't included, that piece of property is landlocked basically by other town properties. And so we decided not to include that piece of property to be able to reuse it for other town purposes. So it was not included. Their offer for $3.4 million also frees up all the money that is currently in the town's water fund, any cash or investments that are currently tied up in that fund that are restricted at this point to use only in the town's water system. That would open those funds up for use in other areas of town. They also have planned to make a $1.25 million capital improvement. That's their budget for the first 5 years, roughly $250,000 a year. They also have discussed that they will offer employment to any qualified existing Signal Mountain Water Department employee. That was in their proposal. They also plan to create a Signal Mountain Water Advisory Board of citizens and I assume officials that will be able to have a say in how things are handled
far as rates go, the request for proposals included a stipulation that for the first 5 years, rates could not be raised. However, it did say basically that anything that was approved by what used to be Tennessee Regulatory Authority, now is Tennessee Public Utilities Commission, TPUC, if it was approved by them, then it could be added on. And what was in Tennessee American's proposal is that they would keep the rates the same for the first 5 years, subject to that approval, but they would add a capital rider, which according to them would amount to about 71 cents per month for the average residential customer.
For the 5-year period?
As far as I know, that was the only thing. Moving on to Allderdice's proposal, they submitted a proposal to purchase the town's water system for $3.6 million. It also includes the same property, and that, as we talked about before, they also in their offer, basically instead of freeing up the money that's in the town water fund and cash and investments, they basically were offering to buy out that fund. So for whatever the value of that fund is at the time, they would buy that out. Their ultimate goal, I've been told, is that they would want to eventually switch their water supply from Tennessee American to Hutson Utility, but that there would be some infrastructure related process behind that.
Can we ask one quick question, just clarification? Isn't it effectively the same, the buyout? Doesn't it affect
well, yes. So yes, that's important to note. That basically those two numbers are the same.
That's right.
Regardless of whether it frees up the money or they buy it, it's going to be no.
It's effectively the same.
Effectively the same.
Yeah, it's all depending on time of closing and whatever, but same amount.
They've also talked about offering employment to our existing City Mountain Water Department employees. The town will be granted a seat on their Board of Commissioners, which is their governing body. I'll talk about that again in just a second. They proposed capital investments of $2.6 million in the first 5 years of ownership, $600,000 the first year and $500,000 for the subsequent 4 years. And then the Board of Commissioners, in their case, whereas they're not regulated by TPUC, they're regulated by their Board of Commissioners as far as the way they handle their rating.
They only have 3 out of that board, is that?
I believe right now it's 3 people, and their proposal is to add a seat for.
So they have 4 on the board?
Yeah, I believe that extended to 4. That's yeah, and I'm going to take that to the chief as well.
Allderdice Utility District, they also offered up a proposal for the operation and maintenance. This reflects everything that was in their proposal. The district offers the town a monthly fee of basically $20 a customer for a user to manage, operate, and maintain the water system. This equals about $900,000 a year. All the capital improvements shall be the town's responsibilities, so it would still be the town's responsibilities to make improvements, water mains, whatever it is. That responsibility will lie upon the town still. The town shall pay the expenses of all utilities, which means buying water, communications, water purchase, or the utilities, electricity to pump it, communications, water purchase, and other fees to the extent they are used for the needs of the system. The initial term shall be for 2 years and then renew annually for the next 8 years. What that looks like, Allderdice Utility District's guaranteed maximum, what was in the RFP on one side, compared to the fiscal year 2016-17 of actually what it costs to operate our water system. So there's our comparisons.
Almost doubles.
Just a question, I got this question, I'm sorry. Does the operational proposal also include switching the water to Allderdice Utility District or continuing?
This one didn't say that. It talks about water purchase, whether it would be purchased from one.
It doesn't say one or the other.
Right.
This may be let's ask the question. The $20, is that passed on to the customer possibly, or is that?
I can't answer that.
I mean, who would answer that question? That'd be you. So that would be a town decision as to whether or not that was a $20 fee that was attached to a water bill.
Correct.
Okay.
Sam, this is the tentative schedule for moving forward.
Wait, can I ask one more question before we leave that one? The 3 point whatever million that is in the water fund right now, what happens to that under the management proposal?
Stays.
Still ours. It stays,
And
it remains restricted to use to the water utility.
so we could then use it for repairs.
Right. That would be, in the operation and maintenance scenario, we are still responsible for capital.
We're just basically paying the fee to run it.
We would have to pay them for the operation and maintenance, and we would have to raise the money necessary to make infrastructure repairs and upgrades.
Okay.
Any questions about the meat of the proposals before we move on to kind of what's coming up?
How much are you going to go into?
Basically, this was kind of just a short presentation. What we were going to hit on now was basically just what the schedule looks like going forward, as far as because I know a lot of people are interested in when these meetings are going to be held. Obviously tonight is when we're presenting to you all. Public meetings are the time frame that we had originally set for those public meetings was March 14th to April 4th. At this point, we have one meeting definitely scheduled, and I'll get to that in just a second. After those public meetings, should council decide that you're ready to move forward, obviously this schedule is not set in stone, it's a proposed schedule. So I'm sure the council wants to do their due diligence and make sure that they are very comfortable moving forward. However, if we decide to move forward with this schedule, the Planning Commission could give their recommendation as early as April 5th at their next scheduled meeting. And then on April 9th, the town council could vote on a recommendation and a selected firm, which we would call a preliminary closing date. At that point is when basically contract negotiations would begin between the town manager and the selected entity for whichever option you decide to go with. And then the proposed transition date that has been discussed, but also is subject to change obviously, is July 1st, just to correspond with the budget year. So our first public meeting is planned for March 22nd, which is next Thursday, at 6:30 in the town hall gym. I believe the format of that meeting, I've communicated with both entities, and I think everyone's in agreement that what will happen is basically there'll be a short presentation by both entities to present their proposals. I've asked them to limit that to about 10 minutes. And then we will open up the field, I believe first for questions from council, so that they can have their, especially in this first meeting, so that they can educate themselves, ask the questions they need to, and then we will open it up to the public, so that everyone can have their voices heard and have all the questions answered.
Thank you. Great work on this.
Thank you very much.
Somewhere back in the back there's a segment, and I may be interpreting it all wrong, but the question of rates was somewhere in there. The rates that Signal Mountain residents would pay and the rates that county residents and Walden residents would pay would be the same, yes or no?
All I know is that in our proposal that we put out, it stipulated that the rates that our customers are currently paying would stay in effect for 5 years, other than possible capital recovery riders. That would have to be approved by certain entities. So they would not. They would basically stay the same.
I can't remember whether that was under the purchase proposal or under the operational proposal.
Purchase. Those were addressed in the purchase proposal. Purchase, operation, and maintenance, I believe that would still be in our discretion.
Well, you have two rates. We would charge them for capital. He says.
No, if there's a purchase, then everything transfers to Tennessee American, and
Walden's Ridge, and they've agreed to hold the rates where they are for 5 years. If you're looking at an operation and maintenance or management, then we fully control the rates.
They're just doing
I should also make just a quick clarification. In the actual proposals that they have offered, there are multiple purchase options. Some, just for time's sake, we included the one that included all of the land. Yes, it's in the report. It's also in the full proposals that you all have.
Can we get a copy of that presentation?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would like one, please.
But there are multiple purchase options. Tennessee American made 3 purchase options, kind of stepped down as far as one purchased all the property, one purchased some of the property, and then one basically purchased no property. Walden's Ridge offered one purchasing all the property and one that would be more of a lease. So I do want to bring that to your attention. But these were the 2 proposals.
The summary, the evaluation committee report is very well done, and I think very detailed. I do have a couple questions that will come out in the other, but I want to commend you for doing it. Boy, I think by picking Bill Lusk, who is former mayor here, who's been very involved in this. That was a great selection to be on this. And then can you explain Tommy Craigle's background a little bit, or do we not want to go into that?
Oh, no. One of the main things is we would look for someone that lived outside the town but was a utility customer. And as I understand it, Sam talked so much more than I did, he has quite a bit of experiences in large utility processes, not necessarily water, but to the extent of being very involved in reestablishing the electrical grids in Iraq after the war. So just a lot of in-depth utility experience, and again, a utility customer that doesn't live in town just felt it was important that they have some representation in the process.
And again, these people did not give a recommendation and are not being asked to give a recommendation, but we have some very, as usual in this town, some very capable volunteers who've got involved with this. And thank you.
I think we need to clarify something too, that because we've gotten these 2 proposals, or 5 proposals, or however many it is, from two different entities, does not mean those are the only options. One of the options is to do something entirely different.
To step up and
internal, and it requires expense, but it wouldn't necessarily require sale. And we have got to, before the word gets out there that the system's for sale, we're evaluating whether it's for sale or not. We've been given proposals offering to buy it, but we are not necessarily seeking to sell the water department, and I think citizens need to know that. If it makes more sense to do it internally, then that's what we'll do. I hope that's what we'll do.
How do we explore that? And if we don't do anything?
Well, I don't think doing anything is an option, frankly. I don't think we...
It's an option. It's not a preferred option, right?
Granted our staff.
Yeah.
What would the process be for exploring ramping it up ourselves?
One of the things that I really needed was the content of these proposals. So when I look at what they're proposing to do and how they'll invest in infrastructure, then I'll need to look at how that equates to what we can do. Frankly, I'll ask each one of them, if you're going to invest X dollars, what does that represent? When you automate our meter systems, what kind of price is associated with doing that? Then I can look and see what it would cost us to do that. So that basically, that will fall with myself and staff to now look at this and see not only how we could do the things that they're talking about doing, what it would cost us, and also what would be involved in improving the operation of our system. And that really is what started this whole thing. One of the first things that I looked at was that operation, and as good as it is, it really needs to get better, and there'll be a lot involved in that.
And And the manager of that department is approaching retirement. So we're going to have to do something there too. Is that, I hope I didn't step out of line for you, but I mean, we're all getting older, unfortunately.
He's just able to retire extremely young.
He started when he was
At some point, we won't have lived here.
Thank you for that presentation. I know we'll have plenty of time and meetings for discussion.
If I might just touch on that further, one of the things that we had discussed, again, we've firmed up that those entities can be available on the 22nd. We started that window on the 14th, but one concern was that if council members aren't able to attend that meeting, I want to make sure you guys had time to review the proposals and could convey questions that you needed asked to me. So by the 22nd? By the 22nd. So we pushed that back to the 22nd to give that window. Okay. So what we've looked at is the 22nd, which is a Thursday. The following week is on the 28th is a Wednesday. The following week on a Tuesday, which is the 3rd. So we're hitting 3 weeks, 3 different days of the week.
Can you, I'm sorry, one more time, Bob.
22nd, 28th, and the 3rd. It'll be a Thursday, a Wednesday, and a Tuesday. And 6:30. Right, we're anticipating they'll all be at 6:30.
But 4-3 is in the middle of spring break, you know that, right? Just, okay. I won't be able to be at 4-3, and I won't be at 4:28, but I can make 3:22. You're not going to make,
I will miss
3:22, but can you make
I'll be
the other
available
two?
for the other two.
I won't be at the 28th for sure.
I'm in town for all.
Yeah. And we got, I doubt Amy will be in for the 3rd, just because it's spring break. And I don't know if we talked about the other two.
No, I haven't.
We may have to, I know we're trying to tighten that and push it in, but we may have to push it.
We're not trying to tighten and push it.
Okay.
If we have,
I would like to,
more time, we'll make more time.
I would like to attend more than one of those.
I saw that July date down there, July 1, and I said, wouldn't that be needed at all, coincided with fiscal year and all that? I can't imagine.
You have to start somewhere. Well, the good part is start with a good scenario. And then if you need to spread it out, spread it out.
The good part is this group, I think this group so far, from what I've read, has done an exceptional job in this outreach. So, all right, anything else, discussion on that? Can we move ahead? Good. Thank you. Thank you all. Discussion. Dan.
Some other business.
Okay, we'll hit other business. No discussion. Boys? Okay. Other business.
We had Sparkle Day. I want to thank Loretta for bringing the dumpster and the town manager for helping coordinate this, and Sherry for getting the supplies for Sparkle Day. We probably filled the same amount this year, even though we probably had a little less participation because of the weather. The Cub Scouts did a big showing, and so they cleaned up in and around the town hall area. Shackelford Ridge is still an eyesore, and there was so much trash between the high school and the top of the where Dick and I ran up and down the hill last year.
Yeah.
We had one person going up the hill, but impossible to get all the trash coming down. So I know that we just do this once a year, but it would be nice if we had someone to consider doing it in some of the areas on Shackelford Ridge.
Yeah, and the sad part too is if you go on Shackelford Ridge out toward the fire station, it's terrible. It's awful.
I had just on the same topic, I had a conversation with our judge, Tracy Cox, and it was an issue that was brought up before, potentially instead of fines or something else that folks that come in front of her, would she be willing or comfortable to have people do community service through the pickups like we do from the highways? So I'm going to have future continued conversation if this council is okay. I'm going to have continued conversations. The concern is who would oversee that, so I'd probably have to bring Chief Williams or somebody into that conversation as well. But if you guys think that's worthwhile, I will continue to talk to her.
I'd like to see that.
Okay. Next, what do you got next?
Centennial, I sent some more information. You all had concerns about cost on that potential play, so Bo now has that information, and they'll disseminate it for the agenda meeting.
Other business? Anybody else? I've got a couple things. RSVP is the National Service Recognition Day. It actually stands for Retired and Senior Volunteer Programs that they do once a year to recognize those citizens, from the volunteer state, senior citizens, and folks that are retired. And we have 20 folks that are going to be they recognize folks throughout the entire Hamilton County, but we have 20 folks up here that are going to be recognized at that event, and I just think that's a testament. I think it's the largest number of people from the entire Chattanooga, any of the other areas, and I think that's just a testament of how good folks are up here. Secondly, right, senior citizens who are given their time and experience all throughout Chattanooga and make the community a better place. I received an email from Chief Williams on some significant concern about the school, given the Parkland events that happened and the securities out there. So it's kind of put, and I've received a ton of contact from parents, it's put some importance in that a possible second entrance or doing something that we can, because right now, Chief Williams and I think Chief Mitchell have the same concern that as Nolan's going in and going out, we can't get our emergency vehicles back there. And that is a huge time that practices are going on and kids. So it's just it's a concern. So I've reached out because the state legislature and the federal are working on these things now that it's a topic, and I've reached out to Bo and Patsy to see if there may be some funding we'd be able to put towards that project for the safety of our kids. And I've talked to Corker's office, and they're both doing a little bit of work for us, so hopefully something will come through on that. And I told you the Arbor Day Foundation. One thing that bothered me through this, and we continue to hear that there's an issue with transparency and openness with this council, which I just don't see. And it just seems that if somebody doesn't hear about something, they immediately blame us for not knowing what's going on. There is an impetus, and there is as a citizen, to make yourself aware of what's going on. But I believe this council, especially things that Dan's done, some of Bob's initiatives, some of the things we've required of the committees we put in place, has been one of the more open councils we've ever had. And I don't see, and I get slightly upset when we hear that we're not as open as we should be. But I think this council has been extremely transparent. And if anyone wants to disagree with me up here, please do. All right. And thank you for your efforts, because it's a lot of your efforts that make that happen. Anything else?
Move for adjournment.